It's a real nice cork pop.
That was. That's one way to say welcome back.
Welcome back to the Bourbon and BS podcast, everyone. This is episode 313. We had a week off. Yes, please. I would love some. And Nate and I are back in the garage. It feels like spring/summer. We love it. Hopefully the weather is nice wherever you guys are at. Both coming off of vacations, which was nice. Probably dive into that a little bit, maybe later.
Yeah.
But hope you had a good time.
I did.
Good.
Looked like you did too.
Had a great time. Had a great time. Yes. Wonderful, wonderful trip for many, many reasons. And appreciate all of the kind wishes from everyone from the Bourbon and BS community, as well as just other social media and also obviously in person. But yes, got engaged last Tuesday. So yeah,
it's been a week.
It's been a week.
How's it feel?
Feels good. Feels good. She's watching right now, so but even if she wasn't, it feels good. Jonathan Herring says Steve's all tan, Nate looks all chipper. Went to different places.
There was a lot of sunlight where I was too, but I was in a tent.
So that, yeah, I mean, that negates it obviously, but we have some new stuff, limited stuff. Well, kind of newer, but both limited production items tonight. We'll get into part one here. I do want to thank our sponsors, obviously, you guys out there. Patreon.com/Bourbon and BS podcast. That's where you can find the different tiers to support the show. We appreciate the continued support. It helps us keep this thing going. And we love that. So also Venmo is available at Bourbon and BS. We appreciate all of that support as well for the one-time contributions. Also want to thank Tinder Box at Easton here in Columbus, Ohio. That's where we're kind of based out of, and that is going to be a local shop. Also can ship to you, but Tinder Box at Easton, Columbus, Ohio, at northeast part of Columbus area. But fantastic retail area, fantastic retail shop, and just hundreds and hundreds of different selections there, including our sponsors, Altadis USA. So Altadis is going to be behind Monte Cristo, Romeo Julieta, H. Upman, Aging Room, among others. We've got, for the second cigar tonight, the H. Upman Nicaragua, solid medium smoke, made by AJ Fernandez. And we've enjoyed that many, many times in part two on this show. Also want to thank BS Cigar Company. They are available at Tinder Box at Easton as well. And that is going to be, the gold is made by Plasencia. The silver is made by Espinosa. And those things are still flying off the shelves. You carry them as well up at Carfagna's.
Yes, we do.
That's awesome.
Yep, silver and gold. Last time we got them in, I decided not to mess around and put them, split a box and do gold's on half a box and silver's on half box. It's like, nope, we got 2 empty boxes of them. Let's just get full box gold.
Go all in.
Silver.
Yeah, go all in. I like that. A little banter going back between you and Jonathan.
I know.
He's trying to give you a compliment.
I know.
And yeah, I feel like
I'm messing.
Proving his point that you are chipper. The happy and upbeat part, though, Jonathan, obviously, maybe you're missing on the target on that one. So, yeah. Thank you guys, sponsors. And then also, if you guys like what we are wearing, the shirts are available. Thanks for moving that. I've got we call it the 2020 shirt for reasons that you may or may not get, but it says, when the world hands you some BS, light it up. Also very relevant to today's world, I feel like, or pretty much all the time.
It's gotten more so, I think.
Just keeps building up that way. And then you've got the 3/4 sleeves.
Don't hold it over the soundboard.
That'd be bad.
Rookie.
Be bad. But yeah, so
3/4 sleeve, black, gold, and white.
Yep. Buyjack.com/Bourbon and BS to check those out. That's buyjack.com/Bourbon and BS for any of the swag for the show. And I always love seeing the pictures of the swag on the Bourbon and BS community page as well. So check that out on Facebook. Ask to join there, and we'll get you on that community page. Great support from the community. We're, 16-ish hundred members strong. So love seeing that. Yeah. So we are drinking. We're drinking.
Yes, we are.
Cheers.
Cheers.
What are we drinking tonight here?
So this is a Midwinter Night's Dram. Mm-hmm. Obviously play on words with the Shakespeare play Midwinter Night's Dream. So this is a very limited product done by High West out of Park City, Utah. It is a blend of ryes. So some of it is sourced from MGP, some of it is their own. And then it is finished in port wine barrels. And then they bottle it. It's a different expression every year. So it comes out once a year. They actually name each one, act whatever, scene whatever. So this is act 11, scene 9.
Is there a relevancy to that?
I'm sure. Well, sure there is. I think act is a reference to how many years they've done it. The new edition each year, I think. Try and look at it. There's not a whole lot of details necessarily on each one. Just like I said, it's a once a year type thing.
Limited engagement, they call it. I like it.
Yeah.
It's pretty cute. It's nice. Okay.
But yeah, so this usually comes out once a year, especially in Ohio. Ohio will get some, and then it'll go out over the course of the week, and yeah, when it's gone, it's gone. So I was able to purchase this bottle last year. This is the 2023 release.
Okay, nice.
So it usually comes out, I think, late summer, early fall, around that time. In fact, we actually had Midwinter Night's Dram on the podcast. Well, I don't think I was part of that show.
It's a long time ago.
Episode 7.
Yeah. Wow.
So back in March of 2018.
Who was on that?
Bovey.
Dustin Bovey.
I think he's the one that brought the bottle too. So
you were there?
Yeah. So this is the 2023 edition. So what's funny about this one? So last year when I was at work, every so often I would get asked in the liquor department if we had this bottle. Now, like I said, it's a one and done type thing. So it's very limited. I think we got a case of it, which is 6 bottles last year. And it's a lot more expensive than their regular offerings.
Yeah.
This is a $150 bottle at retail. In other states, I've seen it go $200-$300.
Wow.
Because it's so limited. It comes out once a year. So last year, there was a Saturday that this bottle was going to go out. I knew it was going out because I received the truck the day before. And I was like, oh, that's going to be unfortunate.
Insider trading.
Well, but I don't tell anybody any of the allocated stuff. I don't.
Okay.
So anyway, I knew we had this bottle and I knew it was going to go out on Saturday. I was like, man, that's one of those. It's kind of hard to find. And, I wish I'd be able to get it. So I go to work. I think that was the day I was in at noon. So the store was open for 2 hours by then.
Yeah.
There were still a couple bottles on the shelf. And I was like, okay, I'm getting one. And later on, I found out why it was still on the shelf. Because apparently the 2022 release, the year before, was absolute garbage.
Oh, did not get well received.
No.
Interesting.
People absolutely trashed it. They did not like it. So there were a bunch of people that when 23 came out, they're like, nope, I'm not wasting $150, $200 on that again.
Do we know, or do we want to talk about it first, but do you know what the response was on this bottle after people got their hands on it?
Much better.
Okay.
If you look up stuff on it, like there's a lot of people that were like, yeah, so a buddy of mine got one. I didn't want to get one, and I regret not getting one because it was so much better. And then you have people like, I'm never going to spend $150 on a product that changes every single year again, and then all of a sudden it comes out like, well, maybe I'll give it one more try.
That's the trouble sometimes doing limited release stuff or once a year release stuff.
Yeah.
In anything, but obviously in the whiskey world and obviously the cigar world as well. So yeah, heck of a color on that.
I know. I noticed it when I pour in. Like there's a
amber.
Yeah, that there's some red.
Yeah,
there's a lot of red in that when you're pouring it. I mean, it starts to look almost like a dessert wine. It
does, but you said
it's finished in
port barrels.
They say port barrels. I don't think they specify tawny or ruby.
I don't see anything on there.
But yeah, I mean, it kind of looks a little bit more towards I would say ruby just because there's so much red in it. Tawny Portmore has that golden honey kind of color to it.
Plus, it's sweeter. It's got a little bit more of that.
So Tawny is going to be more like that butterscotch, vanilla.
Yeah.
Ruby Port is going to be your dark red fruits and stuff like that.
I think sweeter.
It's more fruit forward.
Yeah.
Tawnies are aged longer before they're fortified.
Okay.
Just one of the things I've had to learn. But yes.
No, I enjoy ports, and I do think
yeah.
I enjoy both. But if I recall correctly, the ruby, between the viscosity and, like you were saying, the fruit and all that stuff, it sounds bad, but I mean, it almost has like a little bit of that, like that good cough syrup.
Yes, I know what you mean.
Not the bad stuff, the good cough syrup.
I mean, it doesn't taste like Crown Blackberry?
I don't know what that tastes like. So,
like cough syrup with blackberry flavoring?
No, no one does blackberry cough syrup. That's stupid. Cherry, cherry's it. Yeah.
No, and you actually get, I think, some of that port barrel on the nose too.
Mm-hmm. It's very strong.
Like
on the
particular
nose
flavor, or like on the palate or on the nose. We got Content Kyle in the back. Not using a mic, but
it's okay. We can translate.
Mm-hmm.
So I do get a little bit of cinnamon. I get a little bit of like that fruit we're talking about. I don't know if it's cherry. There's some, you said deep fruits or deep?
Like those dark, deep red fruits, like plum.
Yeah, definitely like that kind of stuff. Plum. But
some
the cinnamon's in there
too.
Yeah. And I mean, it's just not as much in your face. I mean, you still have a little bit, I think, of like the vanilla. You have a little bit of the classic kind of flavors from that, but it is, I don't want to say getting dominated by, but it's getting pushed around by the port characteristics.
Okay.
I think. And it's coming in a little under 100 proof, just shy of 100 proof.
Just shy.
I thought taking the first sip, it might be a little higher than that, but that kind of makes sense.
98.6.
Yeah. Anything else you're getting from it?
Between the plum, the baking spices, that port, I mean, there is a lot going on.
Yeah.
I think the palate is more complex than the nose. I think the nose is kind of driven by that port barrel finish and that aroma. You do get a little bit, especially if you kind of swirl it around, you get some of that port on the palate, but
I'm getting it without doing the swirling thing, honestly. I am. It's kind of like it's that viscosity. It's that those fruits, they're coming through on for me. Like, you know what I mean? I get what you're saying, like get a little air in there or whatever. But yeah.
They actually give some on the back end.
What's that?
Like the works of our favorite playwright, William Shakespeare, a glass of a Midwinter Night's Dram is made to be savored and overall too quickly. This limited release whiskey is a sumptuous marriage of rye whiskeys finished in port barrels. The rye forms a beautiful base of vanilla, caramel, and cinnamon, while the port barrels provide notes of plum, dried fruit, and spice. Like a proper holiday plum pudding, it's brimming with lovely mulling spices, dried fruits, and creme anglaise. I don't know what that is.
Good. I think you nailed that pronunciation.
Yeah, sure.
That's good.
Sip it slowly through the coldest night, which is one of the reasons why they released this like early on in the fall, is, you know, because that proof and the complexity and spice, it's one of those like fall night, a little cooler, crisper night.
Nice, humid Ohio evening too.
Probably not, but yeah.
That's what we're doing.
It's
not hot. It's like mid 70s.
You know, there's a few bottles that I have in my cabinet that are almost kind of special occasion bottles. This was one, and so that's why when I was texting you earlier, I was like, I think we need to do something special.
And absolutely.
So this was one that I brought.
Well, I appreciate it.
Also, you know, with the name down there, limited engagement, it's like, and Shakespeare.
I like that. Yeah. No, that's nice.
Yeah.
If Kristen is watching, I want to see if she comments on that. That's nice. That is nice. It's a nice bottle. I like the presentation. The idea behind it is well thought out. Obviously, using that name, the branding behind it's great. Do we know how many bottles, or you're not able to find that out?
Don't know.
So it's limited, and obviously, it sounds like it's just limited. We don't know.
It's a once a year thing. They do just a certain certain size batch, and that's it.
Yeah.
Till next year.
Till next act.
Yeah, that's right.
Till the next act.
So you probably got about
fit really well. Obviously, also into the topic as well, which we didn't know until we got here.
I also think it's funny down at the very, very bottom. The front label was totally plagiarized from the first quarto edition of A Midsummer Night's Dream.
It says that on there.
Printed in 1600.
So they say that it's plagiarized.
Well, yeah, that artwork right there in the middle.
So if you say it's plagiarized, you don't have to. You can just do it. It's like saying with all due respect before you say something. You're not really sourcing it. Like, we are currently plagiarizing this. And that's what that is on the front. We admitted it. You cannot prosecute.
Well, I mean, we've seen.
Yeah.
I mean, we've seen what happens when you get plagiarized, and sometimes you're president of a university.
It's true. It's very true.
And then after you get busted, hey, you're still a professor.
Nice. Thank you, Eric, and some of the others on here saying congratulations. And then Ray's confused, as it seems. Jonathan says, Kristen, congrats, you got a good one. Ray, trying to be smart, says, good what? Ray, go fuck yourself.
Wow.
What, me or him?
No, him.
Yeah, thanks. I'm going to light this up here. No, but thank you very much for all the great, kind words and wishes from everyone out there. Absolutely. Couldn't be happier. Actually surprised her, which is not easy to do.
I think, Steve, you could be happier if you had a lighter that worked.
You're not wrong. Go on. There you go. I'm going to blew it out. I'll be with you in a moment.
Oh. So while Steve lights this up, we are smoking Los Statos Deluxe limited edition. And Los Statos is the brand, correct?
Yes. Statos. And kind of go over this a little bit. I don't think it says it as much, but Jonathan Herring, actually, who's with the parent company, STG, different branch, Meyer and Dutch, but he said it's a little-known Cuban heritage brand brought back by STG under the Forged cigar portfolio 3 or so years ago. This is blended and designed by Matt Booth. We've got a fact sheet here. Thanks to Forged Cigars for sending these to us. We've never smoked this before. This is a limited edition to 3,000 boxes, and it is a collaboration created by Matt Booth, Justin Andrews, and William Ventura. And they have shipped to retailers as of March 1st, so you may be able to find these on the shelf. We do not have any at all at the Tinder Box at Easton, but just wanted to smoke this because Forged was kind enough to send it to us. So see if you can find these out there in the wild. We're going to talk about here. This is going to be medium to medium plus, is what they're saying. See if we agree with that. Full and flavor transition throughout the entire smoke with so much complexity. There's only one downside to the cigar, and it's that it literally goes by too fast, leaving you to wish the experience lasted longer. This is going to be Mexican San Andres wrapper. You've got an Ecuadorian Sumatra. Let's see what he says on there. Something about Justin. Is he busting his balls?
Yeah. We've had Justin Andrews on in the past. He was the creative mind with Diesel, and now he just works like with the whole STG kind of portfolio in other capacities as well. And like Jonathan's like, yeah, Justin didn't do anything.
I'm going off of the fact sheet here. All right.
Yeah.
All right.
Spitting facts. Let's go.
Yeah. All right. So you got the, like I said, the Mexican San Andres wrapper. You got the Ecuadorian Sumatra binder. And then you've got Connecticut broadleaf, Pennsylvania broadleaf, and Corojo 98 from Nicaragua as the filler.
It's a lot going on.
Reflective of the rarefield nature of the blend, the packaging has main character energy, drawing the eye to a double outer wrapping. Black and gold branding is artistically presented, commanding attention and demanding reverence for this special release.
Yeah, so each cigar first has white tissue paper wrapped around it, and then this black and sparkly gold.
Very sparkly.
Yeah, like reflective. It almost looks like glitter, except it doesn't come off. But yeah, so then this is the outer wrapper, and it's the entire length of the cigar almost.
Yeah. It does catch your eye. Matt Booth did this with the other limited release not too long ago, the Sancho Panza. And so similar packaging. They've done this. I think Room 101's done this before back in the day when Edgar Hoyle was doing the EH cigars. I don't know if he still is or not, but you saw this kind of packaging. Mm-hmm. It does stand out. It's a little overkill on my part, but I get it from the marketing standpoint. It definitely does that. But taking this off, very flashy. The tissue paper I saved, it's like you're just kind of ripping it off of there.
Yeah.
Luckily, this one, the Sancho that I think we smoked on here, didn't we, or didn't we not?
I don't think we smoked Sancho.
The nice thing about this, when you take all that off, the Sancho had like huge band on it. So then you had that to take off. I don't know if you've ever seen that. You obviously haven't. This has your more traditional band on there for the Los Statos. So once you take it off, it is a nice looking wrap relief. It's kind of got a little perfecto or figurado type look to it, right?
Yes.
And 5.5 by 50. And you do have the San Andreas, not a super dark San Andreas Mexican wrapper on there. Would you agree?
I think it's
dark, but I don't know.
I mean, I've seen Maduro's less dark than that.
All right. Maybe it's the lighting in my bad eyes. I don't know.
So what is your take, before we get into the cigar, what is your take on that kind of packaging where it completely covers up and you can't see the cigar itself?
I think there's purpose to it. I think it's a little frustrating if you are the type of person that wants to see the wrap relief, at least to see that. Not saying that's going to that's not necessarily saying how the cigar is going to taste or what you're looking at, but at least it's not completely a guessing game. So this is one that either you're going to buy the cigar because of the packaging and you're just like, oh, that looks cool, let me check that out. Or you are going to ask about it if you haven't looked it up, and you go to a local retailer and you ask about it. Or if you're shopping online, which I doubt this hit online because it's such a small 3,000 box release, but you'll look it up online. You follow some of the sites like Half Wheel, Cigar Dojo, among others. There's so many out there. So if you look it up, but the tough part is, especially, I haven't seen the box because these were sent to us just in a 5-pack and it's cellophane. You don't know what that is. I mean, if you've never heard of this, you see this really sparkly.
You saying you haven't seen the box?
I have not. But you see this really sparkly cover to it, and it's tough to even see like what it is, right? I mean, because if you don't know the logo that you're looking at, because you can't even see the whole logo, it's very deceiving. So
it's a 10 count box.
Yeah.
There's a little bit of liner in between each cigar, but basically you've got just a
LS,
like a very shiny, glossy black box, and then inside the lid you basically just got that gold ring around the edges, and then the logo, the LS logo, in gold as well. Wonder what the top of the box looks like when it's closed.
And there's some comments on the page here, and I kind of can see both sides of it. Oh, Jonathan just sent me a link. Let's see.
The top of the box looks the exact same. So basically it's a rectangular box that looks like my shirt.
It looks pretty high gloss too.
Yes. Yeah, like a Camacho box.
Yeah. But I mean, it is Matt Booth style, and it's interesting that some people, I think some people would be deterred from it, and that's what it sounded like. Ray would kind of probably walk away from the cigar package that way. Ray, I don't know if you would do this or not, or someone else. It might, at least, again, if you're not just in a walk-in humidor by yourself, you might ask someone that's working there, like, so what is that cigar? Because we've had cigars packaged like this, and I've been asked that question before. And then that's when you have the conversation. That's a limited edition. And you have to rely on, obviously, a knowledgeable staff there at that point. But that's a limited edition. It's a collaboration from Matt Booth, yada, yada, yada. And you rattle a lot of this stuff off. San Andreas wrapper leaf, limited edition, 3,000 boxes.
Yeah, and that's why, like, before we started and I was asking about it, like, when I saw that outer packaging, that outer sleeve, it reminded me of the McFly. That was by Oscar. And so just that, that was the 80s one. So just that, big bright colors and, kind of neon kind of look to it, but it covered up the vast majority of the cigar. In fact, when we had Doug on the show, he had mentioned that they don't even make a Robusto in that cigar because they use the exact same sleeve for every size.
Yeah.
If they made a Robusto, it would cover up the entire cigar.
Exactly right. So, I mean, Matt Booth's obviously done well for himself in the industry. So some of his designs are a little out there to more traditional stuff. So, I mean, clearly it works enough of the time to have people try it. Because the other side of this is that I will say this is a nice band on there. But again, very few people know what this logo is. So if you just saw this cigar sit in a box that had this logo on the box and it's sitting there, I think I would venture to guess or put money on that more people would ask about this than they would ask about this. This would be this would be a what's new shopper, and then you have to, like, you say I haven't seen that because you're looking, or it's a what's new shopper, and a retail associate would have to, like, point you in the direction of this. This is going to, you're going to walk by this and
grab your attention.
You're not going to say, hey, what's this? You're going to be like, what the fuck is that? You know what I mean? So it's an attention grabber, I would say.
Yeah.
More than your traditional just, this is another band from a company I never heard of. Like, why is it this MSRP?
Well, and I think that would be a good thing to do for this cigar in particular, because, like Jonathan said in the comments, it's only been around for about 3 years now. So it is, even though it's an old Cuban brand, in America's market, it's a brand new brand.
Yeah.
So it's only been around for a few years. You kind of need something that's going to get people's attention. Otherwise, like you said, just if you had the cigar with that band just sitting in a shelf, it's going to look like someone went out there and is like, hey, I got money. Let me just, pay some people to make a cigar and put a band on it. And we're in a cigar boom. Let me just try and cash in on that while I can.
Well, and again, the comment from Jonathan Herring, again, from the parent company, if you will, being such a small production, it's targeted towards Matt Booth, or to this one, the LSD Los Statos Deluxe limited edition, right? So it's also called Los Statos Deluxe LSD.
Nice. All right.
So there you have it.
See what they did there.
Do you?
Yeah.
It's a drug. Wow. It's a drug. Ray says that's exactly what I'd ask. So I suppose they know what they're doing. Yeah. What the fuck is that? I can see Ray saying that in more of an English accent, but
the fuck is that?
Is that English?
It was Irish.
Hey, we're close. Closer than here.
Depends on what side of the border you're on.
You're gonna start a war here. Ryan Panas, who is our Forged rep. I love how we have him on here. I should have asked him to come on live. 100% for the attention. The best cigar in the world is worthless if you can't get someone to pick it up. Packaging, branding, naming, all important aspects. I would agree with that. And word of mouth. Yeah, obviously. So what do you think of it? We've talked about everything but the cigar itself.
I like it. It's got a good flavor to it. The smoke hits, I think, just a little rough. Like, it's got an edginess to the smoke itself.
Pennsylvania. That's probably Pennsylvania broadleaf in my mind.
Yeah.
In my mind, that gives you a little bit of a bite.
Yeah. Well, and that's what's funny. years, we've talked about it before, years ago, that's what you would say about Mexican San Andreas.
Correct.
But now that wrapper and the farmers there, and then people in the industry, what they've been able to do with that tobacco is absolutely amazing, to where now you can have a Mexican San Andreas on a cigar and it have a lot of flavor and be smooth. So yeah, so it was broadleaf and Pennsylvania,
Connecticut and Pennsylvania broadleaf.
Okay, Connecticut and
along with Corojo, Nicaraguan.
Yeah, and then it was a Sumatra binder.
Yes.
Yeah,
Sumatra binder.
No, I like the flavor. I also kind of like that size where it's just that little bit of a perfecto on both ends.
Yeah,
it's a little bit tapered.
It's comfortable smoke, right?
It is
50 ring gauge.
Yeah,
it's comfortable smoke.
Yeah, but no, I mean, right off the rip, it was good flavor. It kind of punched a little bit at the onset. Then again, you have that slightly smaller ring gauge foot, so it kind of gets started and kind of eases up a little bit. But no, I mean, it's got a lot of flavor. Absolutely. A lot of flavor, and they said what, medium full on the strength of the cigar. Yeah, and I would agree with that. It's not overwhelming, but the flavor is definitely intense, I would say.
I would agree with you, man. I think it's got a little bit of that kind of, like you say, edginess. I'd say a little bit of a bite to it. I think that if I were to guess, it's coming from that Pennsylvania broadleaf being used a little bit more, I think, these days, not in great quantities, which would make sense to put it in something limited. You do something limited. In my opinion, you want it to be unique. You're not looking necessarily for, you can walk a fine line. If that's all you smoke from this Los Santos Deluxe,
Los Statos,
excuse me, John Stamos. If that's what you're looking for, if this is the only one you smoke, then you're in danger of them not trying anything else from the line. But if you've got people that are Matt Booth fans, or they already have some of these cigars, they get it. The worst thing they can say is, I don't like that one, but you don't have to necessarily worry about the production going down south, because you're only doing what you said, 30,000 cigars. Yeah,
3,000 boxes. They're 10 count boxes from what I saw in the picture.
Yeah.
So 30,000.
So you put them out there. Hopefully people really like them. If they don't, that's where you were talking about earlier with this Midwinter Nights Dram. You had what people reviewed as not a great year for it, and then you hurt production, but they come out with something else. And now people are like, but they're selling every one of them.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Either way. So
yeah.
30,000 cigars is a pretty small number.
Yeah. So I'm trying to think, I know we've had some other limited editions in the industry before where, 6,000 or 7,000 boxes, that's still, and they were the ones that are popping up in my mind. Those were still 10 count boxes. So those still double the volume.
Yeah.
Do you know of any, you've been in the industry just as long as I have. Is there anything that you can think of that was even more limited?
I mean, I would say, I don't know the numbers, but I would say some of those Fuente products that they'll put out. I don't know how many boxes they did of the Fuente and Padron limited humidors.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, you're talking 500.
Yeah.
Those types of things. But other than that, no, not really. There's not usually 1,000, 10,000 cigars only. I think that's really rare. And again, it might be a one-time special collaboration or something like that.
Yeah.
But this is clearly limited.
Yeah. The other thing I was thinking was when we had Sean Williams on talking about the Cohiba Spectre that he does every year.
Yeah.
Those are 10 counts, but I forget how many boxes he does. But
it may be smaller than that.
Yeah. He gets some old, well-aged tobacco for those. That's why those cigars are $100 a piece.
Which brings that to the MSRP on this one's going to be $16.99. So for a limited release cigar, MSRP $16.99. Again, only 30,000 made, and this is coming from STG Forged Cigar Company. And Matt Booth joined them within the last 2 years, to my knowledge.
Did you notice that on the side of the bands, there's those two guys' initials?
I do now.
So you got the MB and then the JA.
Mm-hmm. It's made at the William Ventura Cigar Factory.
Not familiar with that one.
Dominican Republic. Isn't there Ventura cigars? Yeah. You've heard of those.
Or Ace Ventura.
No, I don't think he does cigars.
Ray was asking what the size was. This was a 50 ring and
5.5.
5.5
Figurado.
I think people knowing it's a limited edition and maybe who it's collaborated with and what's in it, they would sit there and go, okay, I'll spend the, $17-18 depending on your state's tobacco taxes. If people didn't know what it was and they saw that size of a cigar costing $17-18, I think they'd be a little bit hesitant, especially if they didn't know, if they weren't familiar with the brand.
Well, going back to the scenario there with like a guy
Ask your local tobacconist.
Well, yeah, but I mean, you see this packaging and it says on the shelf. So if you add in tobacco tax, call it $18, give or take, right? What is that? What the fuck is that on the shelf, right?
Yeah.
Packaged like this. Why is it $18? Because that is above your average price these days, right?
It is.
So again, putting it into 3,000 boxes, retailers have already got it. Now it's their job to move it, talk it up, whatever, especially if they like it. I mean, that's what you really want, is that they like it. And hopefully people smoke it and enjoy it. I mean, again, this is not one that you're looking for a repeat buyer, because there is no repeat buying.
Yeah.
I mean, the only thing you can do is smoke one and be like, hey, I'll take the rest of the box.
Yeah.
Or do you have another box?
Yeah. And it's probably one of those where stores that want to carry it, I mean, sales reps for them were probably limited. Like, all right, you get this number of boxes for your entire territory.
I would imagine.
Figure out. I mean, because I mean, we've seen that with Espinosa Crown Heads. I know I used to have it with LFD.
Mm-hmm.
You have some of those limited edition ones. Like, all right, your entire territory has 50 boxes. So you start reaching out to like your best customers and best shops.
Yeah.
Be like, hey, I got something limited. You want it? If not, I'm going to sell it to the next guy.
Absolutely. All right. So how do you think this is pairing up? I mean, we can get into the ratings here. Kyle, do you like this? I'm gonna grab it.
All right.
So yeah, like the pairing for me, I would say that the bourbon overpowers, at least for my palate, overpowers the cigar since it's like a medium.
Yeah.
At first, the cigar was kind of, I wouldn't say a punch at first, but definitely had some strength in the beginning. I was going to say there was no transitions, or maybe one, but then I'm starting to realize like once you get down to like, I wouldn't even say the final third, but somewhere in the middle, it goes like flat medium, maybe not straight medium, but like even less.
Do you think milder than medium?
Not even like a mild medium. So like it definitely goes from like full medium and then less than that. So,
Okay.
But I would say like full flavor all the way through.
Okay.
So.
Nice. Thank you. Yeah. Go to the ratings.
Yeah.
Or do you have something else
No,
here?
that's what I was going to do.
Let's do it.
I figured you were getting ready to click on that.
I clicked on it.
Yep. So whiskey, I'm going to give the whiskey an 8. Not counting really just for what's in the bottle, a once a year release. Like this is something that I can understand now why people look forward to that release every single year.
Yeah.
I'm sure there's someone out there that's got a whole series of them sitting in
unopened.
Yep, collecting dust. I'm sure someone's doing that.
Yeah.
But no,
hopefully they get at least this far in it. You know what I mean? Have a few pours.
Yes, that's the point.
Yeah.
But no, this is the first time I've had it. Because like I said, I don't think I was here when Dustin brought that bottle 6 years ago. But no, I think this is. I think it's a solid bottle. I kind of, and it's one of those kind of like talking about the cigar. You know, do you try and do? If you're doing a once a year release, do you make it the same thing every year to get the people who really like it to come back to it? Or do you do something different every year to kind of keep people coming back to it? Cause like, oh, I can't wait to see what next year's is, you know, like, hey, last year I liked that one so much. I can't wait and see what, 2024's edition is going to be. But at that the same time, you run the risk of what happened previously, where people didn't like the 2022, so they didn't buy it. But at the same time, you still sold out, so it opened up the doors for other people who may not have had the product to be able to get a bottle, like me.
Like you.
But no, I think the profile on the whiskey, I like the flavors. That port barrel finish really shines. And even though this is a rye, like that rye spice doesn't punch you. It doesn't have, like, there's some of those baking spice notes that we talked about earlier.
Yeah.
But it's not blowing out your palate. It doesn't come across hot, even though it's just just shy of 100 proof. There's not an overwhelming floral note to it either that sometimes you can get from that rye.
No.
So, but no, I think there's
finishing. I'm curious how long it's finished in there.
Typically finishing barrels, you're looking at 4 to 6 months. Again, depends on the profile of the whiskey. Like for example, Angel's Envy Rye, that's an MGP 95.5, and it spends 4 to 5 months in a rum barrel.
Mm-hmm.
But that rum barrel gets reused over and over. So if you get an early run through that rum barrel, like, it can taste really sweet.
Yeah, it's going to have a lot more to it, right?
Yeah, it can taste really sweet. If you get a late run through it, it'll have a little bit more complexity, a little bit more spice to it.
Mm-hmm.
But no, I think the port barrel finish is noticeable, but it's not overpowering. I don't think necessarily it's even the focal point of the flavor, but you notice it because it's, port has a very unique taste to it. So when you do taste it, it stands out.
Yeah.
The cigar, I'm going to go 8 on the cigar as well. I do like the smoke. The construction's great.
Yeah, it is.
Like, I can pull through and still, I still have smoke coming through the head where I've clipped it. Like, so the draw is nice, but it's not too airy.
Mm-hmm.
Like, it's just a well-constructed cigar. You look at it, especially if you were looking at that $17, $18 price point. Like, if you could see the cigar without the paper on it, like, it looks it's not smooth. The outer part of the cigar, like, it's got
wrapper leaf. Yeah,
the wrapper leaf. It's got some bumps. It's got some small veins to it. There's some little notches there, but I mean, it still smokes, and it's got a nice little oiliness to it. It's got a lot of flavor. So I think it's a really good smoke for a limited edition at that price point for what you're getting. I think it's worth, if you're out there on the road and you see it, it's worth grabbing a couple of them at least.
How was the pairing?
Pairing, I'm going to go 8.5.
8.5.
Yes.
Interesting.
Because I think going from cigar to the rye actually highlights a little bit more of that port barrel. Just a little bit. It brings out a little bit more sweetness.
Okay.
But what I really like is if I go from the whiskey to the cigar, even though the cigar's got a lot of flavor and it's got some strength to it, it doesn't reignite the spice of the whiskey. Because most of the spice in the whiskey is more baking spice. It's not just heat or cinnamon. So sometimes something that's really hot, you go to the cigar afterwards and it just kind of overwhelms and burns your tongue a little bit.
Right.
This doesn't do that. I think some of the spice that's on the cigar and, that richness with the little bit of sweetness that's on the whiskey, I think they actually play well together.
Mm-hmm. Thank you, Shan Chapman. I did want to throw this on the screen here while I do the ratings. This is a comment I thought was good. I had Jonathan, he commented already, but Ray asks, do the cigar professionals out there truly believe that packaging sells cigars? I'm not talking about bands. I'm talking about extra wrappers, tubes, boxes, etc. Like this is, got the paper and the full sleeve, I'll call it. So we'll see if anyone else comments on there.
I know from my experience.
Go ahead, yeah.
I know from my experience, it can. there are some cigars that you carry in a humidor in a tube, and you carry them specifically because you have people that are like, oh, like something to put in my pocket or put in my golf bag, and the cigar doesn't get crushed. Sometimes putting that extra packaging, whether it be a tube or paper wrapper, gives you a chance to put more flair and more design without necessarily taking away from the cigar. Because they kept a pretty standard size band on the cigar.
Yeah, they did.
You have some brands that they sit there and the band that they put on the cigar takes up half of the cigar.
Yeah,
and it's like, cool, I'm going to smoke this for about an inch, and then I have to take that off. This one, I mean, you leave the band on there the whole time, but that extra packaging that's on there, that's eye catching.
Yeah.
So I think Ryan had said something about that, like, marketing and packaging sells.
Yeah. And so Jonathan said, like any product, it can move the needle. So, I mean, it'll get you a few extra customers, might turn off some of them. Depends also for me, if I see a elaborate packaging, like there was one that stands out. Camacho put out the Diploma.
Mm-hmm.
They re-released the Diploma, saying it was the original Diploma. It came in this like high lacquer, I want to say like a 12 or 13 count, somewhere in there. It was a box, and I don't know what shape it was. I think it was like a hexagon or something like that. And then you took the top off of it, and then there were these triangle, high gloss, individual coffins, and then you had a Robusto in there, and it was like a $22 cigar. And I'm like, what is that cigar if I just had the cigar? Don't give me any packaging. I don't need any of that stuff. You know what I mean? But they're putting a whole product out there. I like Ryan Ponist, who's with Forged Cigars. He said, short answer, yes. Long answer, kinda. Alluding to my previous comment about the best cigar being worthless without packaging and branding. What I mean is the goal of all of that is to sell you the cigar once. And that's kind of part of that. If the cigar is in your wheelhouse, price range, and performs, that will sell you every time after. Packaging won't sustain sales. So I think we're kind of on the same boat, right? Everyone's kind of on the same page. If the packaging kind of strikes you and draws you to it, even at the very least, to say, what the fuck is that? It caught your eye. That's it. It's like some of those commercials that you don't even know why did they make that commercial? But it's so dumb, and it's for whatever, State Farm or something like that. You know what I mean? They did their job to a point that they were just supposed to get you to notice the product.
Oh yeah.
It's not always supposed to be super informative. You're not going to know all your answers to all your questions. It's just going to get you to remember that.
Decades ago, some of the most popular commercials on TV were for Budweiser, and it was just people answering a phone saying, "What's up?"
Man,
but very annoyingly saying it.
That hit my Facebook feed, and I was like, we were idiots back then. Yeah. The frogs.
The frogs. But people remember those. I remember going into a Chinese restaurant, and there was a picture of the Budweiser frogs on the wall of the Chinese restaurant underneath the Budweiser neon sign.
The only difference with that, I get what you're saying, because it's going along with also what I was saying, but that's an established product already.
Yeah, true.
If you saw the What's Up commercial and it was a brand new beer, it could still have a similar effect. Because you're like, what the hell is that? It's for a new beer company. Budweiser at that point can do anything, right? Well, except for recent years. For the whiskey.
Moving on.
I will give the whiskey, I'll give it an 8 as well. I really liked the first several sips. It's a lot of flavor. I would disagree with you, Nate, only in the fact that I got more of the port. And I know you said that before we drank it, so maybe that was a little bit on my mind, but I am getting more of that on my palate. Now, mind you, I have not had a whole lot of whiskey over the last week and a half, honestly, because on vacation, it was like I drank some Jack Daniels, I drank some Jameson, but other than that, it was like rums and different things. So going into a first whiskey in a week and a half that, is something different, a port finished, limited release that's a high rye, much of rye's in there. I haven't had that, so it's almost shocking my palate, I think. So I think that might be why I was getting more of that on my palate.
Okay.
but I do enjoy it. As we're having some more glasses of it, it's more of a sipper, so it's not like a real easy, smooth drinking. I think it's supposed to, as they say, on a cool night, it's supposed to be a nice, slow sipper where you're getting a lot of flavor. It's a nice nightcap, a little weak for me on nightcap. I usually like a little bit more punch if you're just looking to have that one drink. But this is a nice after dinner drink.
Yeah.
So not necessarily a nightcap, but it's like post steak dinner or whatever. You're going to have something that like kind of has a lot of flavor on your palate. I'm getting a lot of that stuff.
Well, like they said, the plum pudding, like some sort of dessert.
Yeah. Like a port would be an after dinner drink.
Yes.
Yeah. But it is enjoyable. The price tag, obviously, that's up there. Appreciate you sharing this for multiple reasons, but $150, that's a price tag on a bottle.
Yeah.
Especially, I get why people didn't want to throw out $150 on if they had the previous year's release and they didn't enjoy it. There's no way I'm going to go out there and just be like, oh, well, it's just $150. Let me try this year's, Now, I might, if you're at a bar that has this year's release, you're like, all right, how much is a pour of that? If it's reasonable, I'll be like, all right, let me try this year's.
Yeah.
And then I might seek out a bottle if I really liked it.
Yeah.
So that's the way I would do that. The cigar for me, 8.25. I was going to say between 8 and 8.5. I like this. I like the uniqueness of it. I enjoyed the smoke so far. That again, I keep going back to it, and maybe that's just me and what I've had before. But that Pennsylvania broadleaf it's a very unique flavor, and I think it does add some complexity to a blend that has it. I think I enjoy it more in the filler than I do as a wrapper leaf typically, but it does make the cigar stand out. It's enjoyable. You already said it. I'm going to go ahead and reiterate that the construction is fantastic.
Yeah,
smoking beautifully. It smokes like a $17 cigar, if you will. Smokes like a high-end cigar.
And I think Jonathan Herring mentioned it in the comments. So for those listening on the audio who can't see that, I think he said that at that factory, like they get trained at the Davidoff factory,
right?
And we know what the reputation is with Davidoff rollers.
So. Yeah. So excellent construction on this. I will say that. The pairing, I'm actually going to go the other way. I'm going to say 7.5.
Okay.
I'm going to say 7.5. It's a lot going on. It's not the best pairing for me. They stand up to each other, but I think it dries out the cigar a little bit more. And going back and forth between them, it's not the smoothest pairing for me.
Okay.
Yeah, I enjoy it, but it's, I think we can pick something better to go. And I don't know what, but I think something better could go with the cigar, and a cigar could go better with the Midwinter Nights Dram. But this is a random pairing, so
yeah,
it wasn't really meant to be this,
Yeah, I mean that is why earlier I'd ask you, did you have an idea what we were going to smoke? And you're like, well, got some new Forge stuff. I was like, okay,
yeah.
So yeah. I didn't want to bring. That was another reason. There were multiple, but that was another reason why I didn't want to bring the other bottle that I have for an occasion. Just because that one's even higher proof than this one is, and it's a bourbon. But I thought this one, even though it's a rye, that port barrel, have a nice combination of spice and sweetness to it. Hopefully, so.
And it does. There's a lot of flavor going on between the whiskey and the cigar for sure. Absolutely. Oh yeah, go ahead, Kyle.
So I was going to say this earlier, but I didn't think it was too important. I was going to say on the packaging side of the cigar, instead of having like a whole band cover the cigar, maybe instead of having maybe not even a long foot band, but have something that covers like the middle so you can slightly see the actual band underneath through the white paper, would maybe like help them. I don't know if I'd say sell, but be able to like, oh, I wonder what's underneath that, instead of like fully covering it all the way.
Well, and like I think it was Ray that actually mentioned the Alec Bradley Black Market. So that one, you've got that band or the sleeve that basically goes from the band to the foot of the cigar.
Correct.
So it's kind of, so you can still see, the top inch and a half of that cigar. So you can still see the wrapper a little bit there.
So I would say this to that also, you would see if you had the other sizes of it, but to what you brought up earlier, Nate, and someone asked about like the tubos, a tubo that's not glass, obviously, but an actual tubo. I mean, the cigar is completely hidden. You're going off of the marketing behind that, you know. And I'd say bringing up Davidoff, we probably sell of the Anniversario line the number 3 tubo more than we sell anything else, and it's completely covered cigar.
Yeah.
Now again, you can see the wrapper if you have the other sizes next to it, which Davidoff usually requires you to have certain sizes on that. But you know, if that's all you have, people do buy based on that packaging. But again, I think you have to ask someone about it, like, what is this? But there are people out there that buy purely off of the marketing, and then it's up to them if they like the cigar.
Well, and also we see it a lot in the industry, especially in December. Get a lot of ladies come in buying cigars as gifts, and oh, that one has a pretty band. Let me get a couple of those. Like, all right.
Yeah. Yeah, Christmas Eve. Don't leave out the humidor too long. You can hang this on the Christmas tree or by your stocking.
There you go.
So
The bottle or the cigar? No.
This would look real nice. You know what I mean? Hanging from the tree like that.
Oh yeah. Nice. Yeah. Thank God that one wasn't on the mic.
If a tampon had that flashy packaging on there, I mean, I don't know if the ladies would really go for it. Plus, that's more packaging to take off, you know, before utilizing said.
What if you're in a rush?
I don't know. Do you want a mic again? You sure? You want to think about that? Okay. All right, buddy. Good having you back in the garage. I won't repeat that one. Okay, that's a good way to round out part 1. Yeah, you think?
Yes.
Got anything else to add to that topic?
All
right. What's that?
Nope.
Oh, yeah, Ray.
I
don't know either. All right, guys.
Say.
Thank you very much for tuning in. Episode 313. Thanks to you guys, Bob. We were talking. We had a new Patreon contributor here. Let's see who it was. Somewhere.
Was it someone that you recognize the names?
It was not.
Oh, well, thank you.
Not, yes.
Thank you for watching.
I'm sorry I can't find it. Absolutely. Good seeing you.
See you, Kyle.
Thank you, Kyle. Absolutely. Sorry I can't find it right now on my thing. I must have hit it already. But we did have another $5 a month Patreon member. So appreciate that to you. We'll find it out here hopefully soon and give you a shout out on here. So cheers to part 1. Thank you very much. And we will be back momentarily. We'll stay live on the feed here. So thanks for all the people listening in as well. Clear. Julie Vol. Is it Vol? Yeah, it'd be Vol. VAHL. So, Julie, thank you very much for contributing. Hopefully, you're enjoying the show. And if you have anything or any questions for us, tell us about yourself. Just comment on the. If you're on Facebook, let us know. Not sure if you're on YouTube or not. I didn't see any YouTube comments on there while we were broadcasting.
Nope,
not yet. But says yeah. So, all right, very good.
We didn't even get into, I mean, we spent so much time talking about the packaging of the cigar. Never talked about the packaging on this bottle, really, except, you know, the plagiarism on the label.
Open plagiarism.
But yeah, it's kind of got that script at the top, you know, kind of what you would expect from old school artwork or playwrights on the, like the inside cover or on the spine of a book, and it just says High West Distillery. Yeah.
I do love their bottles. They're kind of like old fashioned, kind of like a wine bottle shape, but a little more rustic.
They're that standard wine bottle shape. You know, you have as part of the bottle, you know, the High West Distillery with the horseshoe and their, you know, that logo of theirs. But then also, like when you look at the glass, like you have these little micro bubbles all throughout the glass.
Yeah.
So when this is sitting on a shelf, like that, you know, refracts the light a little bit, so you can see all those little bubbles. It kind of catches your eye.
Yeah, I think they designed it too like that. That looks like it could be like behind a saloon bar.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
You know what I mean? The whole High West thing. It's obviously meant for that. And then at the neck, it's a little bit more of like a, I don't know what you call that along the opening there, But see, it's like a thicker rim
Oh, yeah.
around there. Definitely more of a bold thing.
Ray, to answer your question, High West is closer to us than it is you. It's in Utah.
Not sure what the distribution is for them.
But High West, a lot of their products are available locally to us. I know we carry several of their products on the shelf. Recently, we had the cask strength from them. And then there was also one that was same label that was a Cabernet finish.
Yeah, we just did that recently.
It was
we did the other one.
We did the cask strength.
Yes.
Yeah, there was the cask strength and Cabernet barrel finish. Almost the exact same label except that different wording at the bottom. So there were some people that were confused, when they saw them on the shelf, like, are those the same thing? And like, nope, they're two different products, same price.
Oh.
They look identical, but yeah, one's cask strength, the other is not. But that one's the one that's lower proof is finished in a Cabernet Sauvignon barrel.
Mm-hmm. Pull up that Austin one here.
Mm-hmm.
Also want to look this up real quick before we do part 2.
I'm going to see if that catches up without touching it up. So, just that way Jonathan Herring doesn't have an excuse to take another drink. No touch up. No touch up. Oh, wait. No, the rule is on a relight, not a touch up. If that rule applied to touch ups, anytime we had Ryan Newman on, anyone playing the drinking game would get freaking hammered in an hour.
Less than.
I've never seen anyone touch up a cigar more than Ryan Newman.
No.
And when he does, like, he spends like 20 seconds with that torch.
Gotta be perfect. Gotta be perfect. All right, let's roll into part 2 here. Are you good?
Yeah.
All right. Welcome back to the Bourbon and BS podcast. And what's he saying?
No.
Oh, Jonathan Aaron says I drank anyway because he can. So, welcome back to the Bourbon and BS podcast, everyone. This is part 2 of episode 313. After being off for a week, Nate and I were both on vacation, which was nice.
Yes.
Not together this time, but we were both on vacation.
That was 3 years ago.
I can't believe it's 3 years ago, but it makes sense. Thank you for joining us. Part 2 is when we do a little bit of Beyond the BS. Like I said, it's something a little different. We do a topic, and typically we'll have either a guest on. We'll do it with you guys that are listening live. And if you're listening to the audio, we stream live pretty much every Wednesday night around 7:30, 8 o'clock start time for Eastern Standard Time. So we appreciate everyone listening locally and all around the U.S. and around the world. And hopefully you guys listen with us live. But if not, we'll have it available to you at some point on the audio. The video stays available on Facebook and YouTube. So check us out, Bourbon and BS Podcast, also on the Bourbon and BS Community page. Check it out there. We've got starting to push closer to 2,000 members there. So join the Bourbon and BS Community page if you want to be a part of the show, kind of after the show with the people in the community. Great friendships are made through there and a lot of good conversation. Not about reselling, not about, showing off necessarily what you got at the store. You can do that, not the selling part, but to show off a little bit. But it's about talking about what you're enjoying, cheersing people. And like I said, a lot of friends are being made, not just locally. So
yeah,
that's fantastic. We're still smoking the Los Statos Deluxe. This is a limited edition. This is one cigar out of the 30,000 they produced, which is fantastic that they sent it to us from Forged Cigars. Matt Booth, Justin Andrews behind it out of the Ventura Cigar Factory. So check out part 1 to listen to what we have to say about that. We're also sipping still on the Midwinter Nights Dram. And thank you, Nate, for bringing that Dram.
You are very welcome. The bottle's a little bit more than a dram.
Yeah.
I got a couple new Dram glasses when I was on vacation.
Did you?
Yeah.
So what'd you do on vacation? Let's hear about it real quick.
So for the first time since 2017, Jess and I went back to Lexington for the Kentucky 3-day horse show. So it's a 3-day eventing show. So kind of the stuff that you would see in the Olympics. In fact, some of the people that were competing were qualifying for the Olympics. So you have dressage, which is just the fancy walking that the horses do. You have cross country, which is up and down the hills and over the jumps and through the ponds and stuff like that. The course was 4.25 miles long, and they had 11 minutes and change to do it. That was the target time that they were supposed to hit.
How big is this arena, or is this like outdoors?
No. Well, so you have the arena that all that stuff takes place, and then behind it on the grounds is where the cross country event takes place.
Okay.
So it's just literally on the other side of the stands for the arena. Like you're actually going through. They actually have a polo course out there. So there's a couple ponds out there. There's some rolling hills because you are in Kentucky. So every year there's a different course design. So it's a different pattern every year. There's different jumps, different setup every single year. The riders get to like walk and observe the course, but there's no practice runs. They don't get to sit there and take their horse out and just leisurely go through the course at their own pace to try and figure out the timing and everything like that. Basically, they have a rider that goes out there and does the course, or however they calculate it, and they're like, all right, this is the target time. This is how long it should take you to finish this course, and you get penalized, if you go over or if you knock over obstacles or refusal or throw the rider.
That's bad.
Never seen so many riders get thrown off in the past. There were quite a few.
Really?
Although the one thing we saw for the first time was actually during dressage. Again, that's just them on the horse doing the fancy walking.
What is fancy walking?
Well, like how they'll kind of trot like at an angle. Or they have to do the certain footsteps, or they're doing a pattern and they have to make a smooth change as to what leg is the lead.
Like a sobriety test, sort of.
Sure. But yeah, there's a set pattern.
Say the alphabet backwards.
There's a set pattern that they have to do, but there was one horse that very early on, one of the judges called the rider over to their judge booth and was like, "You're done."
Why?
The horse wasn't behaving, let's say. So they're like, "Yeah, we're going to ask you not to continue." So they were eliminated day one. So they weren't even allowed to compete the next 2 days. And then you have some people that go there and like they're trying, like maybe they only do the Olympics in dressage. So they did the day one dressage test and then they withdrew from the competition after that.
Okay.
And then there were some that didn't even make it past cross country. And then the third day, Sunday, is the show jumping.
Okay.
So that's the one. It's back in the arena where you have the gates with the bars going across, and they have to successfully navigate and jump all over those. And the first 2 days, it's completely like the order is set, but it's kind of random. But then when it comes to the show jumping, it starts in reverse order. So the person who was in the lead after day 2 is the last one to go. Yeah, so this year was the first year Jess and I actually got tickets to one of the hospitality tents.
Nice.
So because when Jess was asking me about it last year, she's like, "Hey, I was thinking about doing hospitality tents. What do you think?" And I was like, "Well, I'm not going to ask how much the difference is, but I assume it's going to be an extra cost." "What's included?" She goes, "Well, we get closer parking." I'm like,
"Nice.
Okay. Used to walk 2.5 miles to work every day. I'm not really worried about the parking."
You don't anymore, though, so you might not have it in you.
Well, she's like, "You get closer parking and you're parking in a parking lot, not on the hills and the grass." I'm like, okay, we're getting.
Should the Buick or the Lexus?
We actually rented a car.
Okay.
And the reason we did that is because the last time we had rented a car and we went to Nashville, the car got broken into.
Okay. Yep.
And so I was like, I would hate to be in Kentucky and my car get broken into, and I got to either find a shop there that can do it on the weekend, or drive it back to Columbus and take it to my shop, make that and, drive back on a Monday and be like, "Hey, need a new window."
I get it.
So yeah, and I don't
Didn't
think
get broken into.
didn't get broken into.
All right. It's a plus.
I had requested a Camry or similar, and they gave me a Nissan Rogue.
Nice SUV, little guy.
4-cylinder turbo, which I wasn't too happy with, but got really damn good gas mileage.
Hey, man. It's good when you're just taking a road trip in a rental car, you know?
Yeah. Except you can't smoke in it. Unless you're like some people we know and you just buy a bunch of McDonald's French fries and throw them in the back of the car.
Not me. Don't point at me.
No, I'm not. Not you.
I thought you did. I was like,
No.
that wasn't me.
No, I was just doing this. Like you and I know who. No, Jonathan, that's the derby that wears the fancy hats. I did not wear a fancy hat. The fancy hat I did wear was the Asylum hat that Nook gave us at the 10 event with the scarlet and gray.
Nice.
The Richardson 112, as they call it, because that's the manufacturer and brand.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, so I was like, all right, so what else is included in the tent? Oh, there's food. I'm like, okay, now we're getting there. You don't have to go to the concession stands and pay for, just high priced junk food.
So closer parking, good parking,
and then
food.
Open bar.
And she had you at open bar.
As soon as she said drinks are included too, I went, what kind of drinks? We talking pop? She goes, no alcohol. And I'm like, done. So they only have like one bourbon, a rum, a vodka, gin, stuff.
Yeah,
like
it's not gonna be a full bar.
No. They made mimosas and margaritas. I had some Baileys in my coffee a few mornings.
Nice.
And then just drank Blade and Bow.
It's not a bad house whiskey.
No, not at all. I drank it on the rocks. That way I could keep up my water intake.
Smart. How'd you do?
Oh, I did fine.
Good.
Yeah. Gesture
Nice.
back to the hotel. Then we'd walk. And what's great about where we stayed, we literally walked 800 feet to go to breakfast or dinner at night. And then we'd go back to where we were staying and have a bottle of wine.
Mm-hmm.
Did that every day.
And this is your first vacation in how long?
Since November 21.
Yeah.
So 2.5 years.
Right. So, Ray's saying, not the one to complain. Didn't we cover this before? We did to a point. I mean, obviously, after 300 some episodes, this is something that we need to talk about. And we want to get from you guys out there as well. But there was a post from someone that is he's been on the show before. He also follows us and he does on the community page, but he put this on there, and it's funny because some people, he said not the topic, Nate's vacation. No, we haven't talked about it.
No, I haven't been back since the last time I went was before the podcast ever started.
He hasn't taken a vacation in 2.5 years, so no, we haven't, but that's good. So the whole thing, don't live the same year. This is a Robin Sharma quote, and I looked that up because I needed to know what this is. Who he is. I've never heard of him. He's a Canadian writer and also speaker. Self-help, motivational. Don't know much about him, but the quote that was on there was, don't live the same year 75 times and call it a life. You need to go back over the last episode. Maybe he did talk about what he was going to do. But anyways. This is... So don't live the same year 75 times and call it a life. This is, I think, a very good pointed way of saying some of the things we talk about on here sometimes, but it's very, very specific. We've talked about being in a rut before. We've talked about just all these types of things around this type of topic, but it's always don't look for the grass is always greener. It's like all these types of things around it. But the way this quote is don't live the same year 75 times and call it a life. Obviously, literally you can't, because as you're growing up, if you live the same life as you did when you're 6 years old, there might be some issues going on there. And I think that, but other than that, I think the point of it is talking about vacations. We've talked about that on the show before. Sometimes you just can't take the vacations you want, take the time off from work. You can't afford it, whatever it might be. But it's simply, if we talk about what are you thankful for next year
Mm-hmm.
on the Thanksgiving episode all the time. We talk about, you know, when seasons are changing, you know, what's the significance in that in your life. I look at this as there are too often a lot of people that they just don't do anything for themselves. They just literally go to work. They come home and live the same day over and over again. And there's no really aspirations. And even if your aspiration is for retirement or whatever it might be, but it's like you waste 30, 40 years of your life, not waste, but you live your life that kind of way. So, you know, ages 20 something to 60 something, same year in, year out, year in, year out. There's no way, even if it's a good, like, even if it's a good year, you don't want to try to live up necessarily to, like, you know, with you know, with me proposing and getting engaged to Kristen within the next year or so, there'll be a wedding, and it's like that's going to be a huge highlight. It's, you don't want to live that same, you want to like live in the memories a little bit, you know, like enjoy those and get pictures and talk about it, but you don't necessarily want to like you want something to be special. It's a one-time thing. You know what I mean? It's okay to like vacation in the same places sometimes, but be open to maybe do something different sometimes, because if all you do is the same thing over and over again, yes, it can be enjoyable, but I also think that it can take a little bit of the excitement out of it because there's nothing really new to look forward to.
What do they say? Variety is the spice of life.
They do. Yeah. Yeah.
Not in all areas, but yeah.
So Jonathan, you know, Herring says, we'll put up some comments, take it out there to you guys. 38 years and I'm doing pretty good in this department. Helps that it's my natural personality to embrace and enjoy change. I will say change isn't as easy as it once was. So yeah, things I think will get a little bit harder as you, Ray says, you're only 38. I think sometimes change obviously is not necessarily a choice. Sometimes it's dictated towards you. We've talked about that on the show before. I think that, you know, as you get older and you have more responsibilities and things like that, change is not always as easy because there's more factors that are involved. There might be more people involved. There might be some responsibilities involved that you can't just make a change in a job. You can't make a change in moving. Sometimes it's positive, but sometimes I think it's a little bit difficult. Ray says out there, this is similar to people claiming they have 30 years experience in a job, but they've been at the same place all that time. So really you have 2 years experience 15 times to a point. Like I said, I think that can be construed. What do you think of that? I'll put it towards you.
What was that one in reference to again?
Well, we're talking about the 75 years, the same year. So, I mean, he's looking at as to what I'm reading this as, it's similar to people claiming they have 30 years experience in a job, but you've been at the same place the whole time, maybe doing the same job the whole time, if you will. You have no real growth and all that stuff. So really they have 2 years experience 15 times over is what he's saying.
Well, and when Ray first posted that, immediately I thought of my dad, because my dad was at UPS for 37 years. No, 35. And he was a driver for 28.
Yeah.
And so he literally had the same job for 28 years. Now, sometimes during the course of that, he would have a different route. So you're meeting different people every day. You're having different interactions. You're building relationships with different customers, which is weird when you think about a delivery driver. Like literally all they do is they come and they deliver packages. But there were customers that he would have that every year, like they would give him gift cards for Christmas or something. Or they'd give him gifts and stuff because, you know, that person's the guy always delivering stuff to their business. I remember when UPS drivers went on a strike years and years ago. My dad and I were at Kroger and ran into a guy who owned a small business. He goes, "Oh my gosh, I miss you because these scab drivers they have are fucking terrible. They can't get it in and out of my lot at all."
We like our UPS delivery guy. We've had him for a few years now, and he's the best we've had at the shop.
Yeah.
Sure.
I thought you were talking about here, and I was like, "How many packages you getting?"
You get a different Amazon driver every time.
Yeah. Yeah.
Not the same thing.
No. But no, when you like, so in a sense, I agree with what Ray is saying. Like my dad, those 28 years of driving a truck, they all kind of blend in and blur together. It's just one big delivery route,
Right.
in his mind. But at the same time, he's had a lot of different interactions with people over that time, and he's met a lot of great people, and talked with some of these people and learned about their business or them as individuals even. I think his least favorite route was actually his last one, where he had to go to Rickenbacker.
Oh yeah. I can see that.
Because every single time he's got to go through base security.
Right.
And one time he got in and he used to, because he'd have to show his driver's license going through the gate. Well, instead of putting it in his wallet and having to fish it back out again, he would just put it like on the dash. And then one time he goes to look at the dash and goes, shit, where's my driver's license? He couldn't find it. He's like, how the hell am I going to get off the base?
Yeah.
And then he was driving up the road and saw this flash of light off in the corner of his eye. And he stopped the truck, goes 20 feet out into a grass field, which again, maybe not the best thing to do when you're on a military base, is just stop your truck in the middle of the road and get out, start walking around.
Probably
but no,
not.
it was his driver's license sitting out in the middle of a field.
Jeez.
And the reason he saw the reflection is because it spent so much time in his wallet, it actually curved. So it actually reflected the light and just kind of concentrated. And
I still don't think you should put your wallet in your back pocket.
no, it's horrible for your spine.
That's right.
You've seen Dee's wallet, right?
I have not. I don't want to. The Stanza wallet.
Yes.
So, Ray follows up here. It's not about appreciation, and I'm not demeaning anyone, which I don't think you were.
No.
It's a statement that you stop learning early. You stop learning early on if you stay in the same position, in the same place. Why is everything taken so personally? I don't think it was taken personally. I think it was just like trying to answer it. And I think, I don't know. It's interesting because, with the job thing, it can be, if you're just looking at one factor of it, it's like you have the same job and say you haven't had a whole lot of growth. I mean, like when I was in my previous career, it was like every 2 or 3 years, I would have a new position. So there was growth shown on the resume. Yeah, I was the same place, but I had different positions. Now, over the last 11 years, I've essentially had the same position, doing what I'm doing. So resume wise, it could look like it used to be a little bit of a loyalty thing. Now it's almost expected that you've had growth in certain careers or certain career paths. On the flip side of that, career wise, it's also, I think, to Ray's point, I'll say this, is that sometimes on a resume, if you've seen them leave companies every 2 years, as opposed to having the same 2 years 15 times over, I've seen you have no loyalty to the company. So, and I know in some positions, in some career paths or some industries, that's expected. You know what I mean? Like you will be. I mean, you look at like, Kristen, what she does. I mean, she is a recruiter. So there are opportunities out there that in certain industries that
salespeople. Yeah.
Salespeople, yes, in a different way, because when I was hiring salespeople in my last career, if I saw someone that worked a sales job 2 years, worked another sales job for 2 years, worked another sales job for 2 years, it's like, what are you going for here? Are you looking for another opportunity that's going to pay you more, and that wasn't it, and this one wasn't it, and this wasn't it? Then why am I going to train you for 2 years only for you to leave me?
Or are you not hitting numbers?
Yeah, it's just one of those. It can be I guess a green flag and a red flag at the same time. I think more to what we're talking about. Not saying we're not talking about that. I said kind of more what we're talking about is just life in general. I think if you just allow yourself to get in that rut, if all you're doing is going to the same job, and say you have aspirations for more, or you're doing that job so that you can do other things. Some people work a job so that they can pay for vacations. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. It's not necessarily a favorite job, but it pays the bills. Sometimes it pays very well, but it's kind of supports their hobbies. It supports their interest, that it supports obviously their family.
Puts food on the table and a roof over their head. There have been plenty of people over the years that have done jobs just for that.
Mm-hmm.
I've done that before. Jess and I have fallen on hard times where literally I'm like, all right, who's going to give me an opportunity to pay bills?
Yeah.
And that's the only reason why I went into a job, was just to be able to, provide. And then once you're able to do that, it's like, okay, now I can look for something, and now I can be, if I'm in a good place, I can be a little pickier about what I choose to leave.
Yeah.
I did that last year. Left a career after almost 9 years and did something completely different, which was one of the reasons why I didn't take a vacation last year, is because you don't get a vacation or you don't get paid days off until you've been there for a year.
Right. And it's good that you took that vacation. Again, going back, got Ray and Jonathan kind of both commenting here. Ray saying previous generations were looking for longevity in a career, whereas that is much less common today and becoming less common with younger generations. I think we're going to start seeing it go a little bit back the other way for some, because unless you try to grow within a company, there's not, and I'm talking certain industries, there's not going to be as much entry-level positions for the younger generations. There just isn't, unless we go a different way. And I'm talking skilled, unskilled, and all that stuff. But I mean, when a market gets saturated and you're just disposable at that point, you do react a certain way. That's what I think we've seen more recently, is that a lot of the younger generations, it's like, if they don't feel like they're being treated well, and I'm saying this almost on a lighter side, if they just feel like, I'm not making enough money, I'm not doing this, they just quit their job and they try to get another job. And because times were so tough in certain industries, people were getting hired left and right. Now you're seeing the other side of it, where some of these unskilled positions are being replaced by kiosks and things like that. And you have, at least in this country, you have a big push for higher wages for the entry-level positions. There's no aspirations for a lot of people to do more, because they're starting off making more money, and they'll eventually want more. But it's like, that's going to be replaced by a lot of, I'm talking like, and I know it's not career for everyone listening, but you're looking at like retail employees, grocery store employees, restaurant employees being replaced by things that engineers are making, and then it's up to the consumers to do it. And then those people at those more entry-level positions are requiring higher, or the government stepping in and giving higher wages to that. Well, then all the people that were making the higher wages before, now the new people are making as much or more than they were making. Now you have to bump the whole scale up, and this is a tumbling thing here. And so I think you might see a little bit more of a pushback to the fact that you want to be employed. You want to have a little more mix of longevity in a career, as well as a little bit more of bigger and better opportunities. I think it'll balance out a little bit. I think the younger generations coming up right now, it's a scary place for them, because where do you learn the work ethic if you can't get a job in high school or middle school? You can't get that job anymore because retired people are doing those jobs, or machines are doing those jobs. I don't think there's going to be a whole lot there. A lot of comments here.
Jonathan's trying to hire Ray to move to Atlanta.
Oh, perfect. Bring people together here. Yeah, Jonathan says he's hiring people for the first time and found it to be very interesting. Having to judge people's experience and resumes is a challenge. No shit.
Yeah.
It's not easy. You got to decipher between a lot of bullshit.
Mm-hmm. Well, and some of the factors I looked at last year when I made a career change, and I'd been looking for a while, but I kept looking at things similar to what I was doing or had done. It was just then, I took an opportunity that was completely different. Money was almost the same. So that was a lateral move in that sense. But I'd gotten to the point with AEP where there was not a lot of opportunity for me personally to be able to advance.
Okay.
I'd made a couple of I'd made an advancement, from doing door to door to an office job, and I was at that for the majority of my time at AEP and then made a lateral move into a different department. Because I was looking at like, okay, I can't go anywhere here or from where I'm at right now. But if I make a lateral move, then maybe from there I can go up. And no, just the way things were going, that just wasn't going to be possible.
Yeah.
So I was at a job, unhappy, and not able to go anywhere within. So I was like, okay, if I really want to do something that's I'm going to be happy to do, I got to make a change. I have to do something different. And I think that's one of the cool things about retail, me working at Carfanus, you working at Tinder Box, like even though it's the same, you look at it on paper, even though it's the same job for however many years, you have different interactions every single day. You have different people, you have different opportunities to help customers. And if that's something that you really enjoy and are good at, that can be that variety in your work. Even though it's the same job day in, day out, it's new people and new opportunities to do what it is that you enjoy doing.
Yeah.
And that can make that time there worth it.
I think, yeah, I agree. It's a mix between that and also things can get stale. So it's on you sometimes to take this thing about don't live the same year for 75 years and call it a life. I mean, don't take the same 10 years and call it a life, like that decade, because if you don't try to, I guess, in a sense, recreate parts of it in a sense in your job, don't wait for someone to tell you like, hey, we need to do something different. Stay creative, stay on the offense. You know what I mean? The same thing with relationships. Those will get stale if you just keep doing the same thing over and over again. And come home from work, talk about it. And I'm not saying that there's necessarily a bad thing to some level of comfort, but you have to, you said variety is the spice of life. You have to keep things exciting because you don't want things to get stale. So it's not like you have to recreate the wheel every time, you want to do something, but if you brought flowers home every time to Jess, that literally every day, obviously that's expensive, but if you did that every day, it will be nice and sweet. But if that's all you do and you don't do something on top of that or different, eventually that's going to get stale.
Yeah.
Such a nice gesture. Anyone up from the outside, you say like, well, why are you having problems in your relationships? Like, well, I bring flowers home every day. Like, you do? I wish my significant other would do something like that. You know what I mean? Like from like outside looking in, you're doing something nice, but you have to be creative. You can't just keep doing that same thing and that's it, because now that becomes, in a sense, the minimum. That's not going to be something exciting. It becomes an expectation. Almost, you're kind of trapped there because if you stop doing it, then now there's something wrong. But if you do that or you switch it up, instead of flowers, she likes wine, you bring home a bottle of wine. Now she might say, where are my flowers?
I forgot to bring that. Shit. I was going to bring a bottle of wine too.
It's okay.
I'll try to remember next week.
My point is that you just don't want to keep doing the same thing over and over again. When things are going poorly, everyone says, if you expect different outcome, you do things over and over again, expect something different.
Insanity.
Absolutely. You don't necessarily, I'm not saying you have to take things for granted when things are going well or not be creative. I think that you want to, again, stay a little bit on the offense there, right? You want to stay aggressive on that and try to make sure that people are enjoying themselves. You're enjoying yourself. Once you do things enough times, it's going to become stale to you. And I think that's where you start losing yourself to that point. See what Lou has to say. For some people, their job is their life, but for others, it is something that you do that allows you to live your full life. Community involvement and family life can evolve and bring meaning. That's nice. What do you think, Nate? I mean, with what I was just saying there, if you're doing the same thing over and over again, even if it's a good thing, do you agree or disagree that there's a possibility that it could be stale, that it could turn into, like you said, the expectation?
No, I do agree, because then that becomes the new rut. So then what are you going to do different? Well, you can't necessarily do something different that is, say, less meaningful.
Yeah.
Because now you're taking a step back. It's like, if you take care of things, at the surface level, and then every now and then you throw in that random act, that rises things up a little bit. That doesn't mean you have to that doesn't mean that's your new norm, but that provides enough of a rise in things to where, okay, now the next day, you bring Kristen home flowers when she gets back from her work trip. Great. That doesn't mean you have to do that every day. You just
She's listening. Thank you.
I'm
just kidding.
Damn it. But no, you make sure that the day-to-day is taken care of. Because I think as long as the day-to-day stuff is taken care of, the random acts of appreciation are even more greatly appreciated. And that's what makes those acts even more special. Like if things are going horribly and you do a nice gesture, like that person could take it as, oh, this person's just trying to buy my emotions for this short time.
Yeah.
And so
what did they do wrong?
Yeah. Or
right.
that.
Yeah.
You start checking his phone. No.
Gotcha. If you're doing that, it's a problem already, and that's quicksand.
Yes. But no, I think the important thing is to, have your basics taken care of, because then the nice gestures that go above and beyond are that. It's that nice little,
there you go.
That nice little spice. Sorry, Steve. I'll try and bring that bottle by Friday.
Just kidding. I mean, it's already like, but now if I do it, it's going to be because you said it, like it,
and you feel guilty.
You just really set me up there, Nate.
I'm sorry. How can I make it up to you?
Don't try. It's fine. I just did a big surprise.
I was about to
last
say,
week, so
yeah, I was about to say,
but that doesn't last that long either. Now we're planning, so
it's on your finger. That's
no, you just stop. Just switch gears here.
Okay,
these directions here.
No, the when you first brought up the topic of what Austin posted, the thing that initially came to my mind, like we talk a lot, I think, about planning for the future and stuff like that. I think when I read his comment or his post, it was don't look so far ahead to the future that you forget to do things today.
It's a good take on that.
So if you want to live, 75 different years, okay, how do you make this year different? Okay, you do the vacation or you do something exciting. And, that's the highlight of this year. If on December 31st, you're looking back and go, hey, what the hell did I do this year? Oh, I did this. I did this. I have this list of achievements or accomplishments that I've done. Like, it was a great year. Cool. Now, what do I do next year? Like, maybe some of those things that were highlights the previous year, you do again because they were highlights. Or now you're like, okay, well, we did that. Now what can we do? Or what's the next step to look forward to, but still be able to enjoy things now? It's like you can have your 5-year goal, but don't forget about the 5-month goal.
No, absolutely. I mean, I like that take on it because it goes into the work area, right? So people that are working for retirement, but they seem to not be enjoying themselves now. Okay, you work for retirement, say you got another 10, 20, 30 years towards it, right? and you're like, I'll take vacations, or I'll buy myself this, I'll treat myself to this, I'll do this new experience or try this new hobby when I retire, when I have the opportunity. One, you may not make it there.
It's very true.
Two, you make it there and it didn't turn out the way you did, and you didn't save money, the market crashes, whatever it might be, right? You lose your job, something happens there, right? Plans change. And so I like that take on it, because plans do change to a point that you can have this goal that you're working towards, and you live the same life for X amount of years just to get to this change in your life. I'm not going to say you wasted that time, but with the possibility that you may not make it to that point in your life, you work for a company that, Josh at the shop was just telling me about a friend, it was a couple that's a friend of his. And literally this guy worked for this company for 30 years, I think 31 years. And everything's paid off. So, he's been taking care of things and all that stuff. I'm not necessarily saying that I don't know this person, so I don't know if they live life to the fullest or anything like that. Did it for 30 years, pulled into the parking lot, and was met by the CEO and the HR manager in the parking lot. Didn't even get out of his car. Wow. And they said, we're going to go in a different direction.
Yeah, I've been there.
This is after 30 years.
Well, okay.
Which is, again, I mean, you have been there, but it's
not after 30 years. But
after 30 years, and he had, an office, and they, at one point they're like, yeah, we'll send your things. And he's like, I've been working here for 30 years. I'm going in and getting my stuff. And just the CEO walked away, and he was just like, you're a fucking asshole. Because those are the types of things you feel like you're loyal to, like a company or something like that. And all you do is you do it so that you can get to somewhere in life where you're going to enjoy it. And it changes without your control. Now, what do you do? Because you've spent, I don't want to say wasted, you've spent X amount of years, 30 years, 15 years, 10 years, 5 years, whatever it is. I'm not saying do the thing where we were talking about the younger generations and, you're always like going to the next thing and you don't want to have any real loyalty to a company. There's a mix there. But if all you do is this blind loyalty to a company, I mean, I was fired after 10 years at a company, and I wasn't very happy for the last year and a half, but I was even not a victim of it, but I let myself be put in a place where I kept working because of the security. I kept working because of the pay. I kept working there, even though I wasn't happy. I didn't look at the fact that like I would have spent another 5 years, 10 years doing that. Probably not very happy if they had allowed it. And without warning, I was let go after over 10 years. And it's like nothing. Like it was just like, we're going to take the company in a different direction. Even though we were hitting numbers, even though we were doing well, even all that, it was just, we're going to do something different. No loyalty back.
Yeah.
At all.
And sometimes that can be the bad thing about having loyalty to an employer is it's one-sided.
And they have a business to run. I mean, whoever it is, they have to make their decisions, and you just have to, I guess, look at it the same way.
Well, it also kind of reminded me, or go ahead.
Lou says, do you always need to accomplish something, or is it sometimes enough to look back and know you've experienced something new?
But I think experiencing something can be an accomplishment.
Absolutely.
Like taking the vacation or doing a trip, a bucket list thing or whatever, like that can be an accomplishment. It doesn't necessarily have to be a career change or a promotion, a new job, whatever, new house. Like it can be an experience, but it may be something that you either haven't done before or something that makes you look forward to every year.
The accomplish something, or looking back and knowing you've experienced something new. I don't think it's an or thing there. I don't think it's a one or the other thing. I think there's a balance there. I think that with the, do you always need to accomplish something? Some people do. They need to have those benchmarks. They need to have the ticks off their, their they're ticks on the the belt or on the wall. You have to be able to be like, I hit this, I hit this, I hit this. If you're too busy focusing on the check marks in life or whatever, sometimes you'll sacrifice experiencing something new, because all you're doing is you're working for the next position. You're buying the next house. You're getting these material things. You've got your own internal, sometimes written down checklists, but you're just shooting for that almost blindly, not allowing that checklist to evolve with what your life is becoming at that point. But I do think that sometimes on top of that, it is enough to look back and know that you've experienced something new. I think that is also part of, you can look at that as what you're saying, like that is accomplishing something. My one of the things I wanted to do was try something new, go to a new place, try a new hobby, try a new restaurant, you know what I mean? Like whatever it might be, try a new whiskey. There's people that, even smoke cigars, and it's something where it's like, no, I only smoke this one cigar and that's all I buy and all that stuff. It's like, do you want to try something? This is kind of like that. No, I don't, because then I might be disappointed. Okay. You won't be pleasantly surprised either if you do try this. So
maybe could be enlightening.
I
know I had a customer years ago that was like that. He always smoked the same cigar. It was his go-to daily cigar. Anytime he came in the shop, that was all he ever got. And then that brand was putting on an event, and he's like, "Oh, okay, yeah, I'll try some of the other things." And he was always, I'll go ahead and say the brand. It was a Rocky Patel.
Okay.
He was an Edge Light double Corona. That was his go-to. And then there was a Rocky Patel event going on at the shop, and he decided, yeah, I'm going to buy some different Rocky Patels. He got the Super Ligero.
Different smoke.
Which is the complete other end of the spectrum.
Sure is.
And I was like, oh, Larry, that's going to be a bit much. Like, for what you normally smoke, like that's at the time, that was probably the strongest cigar that Rocky made.
I would agree.
And he smoked it and absolutely loved it. Surprised the hell out of me. I was like, oh, cool. Now I got something else to work with when Larry comes in. Still has his go-to, but now he's open to trying other things. But no, I remember as we were talking earlier, one of the things that popped in my head was when my dad was still working at UPS, he would come across customers or people on his route. They're like, "Oh man, UPS drivers, you guys get 6 weeks vacation. That must be awesome." He goes, "Well, start as a package loader for 6 years, and then you can drive. And then after you drive for 20, then you get your 6 weeks vacation." Oh no, I don't want to start all over.
I don't want to do that.
I don't want to do that. I don't want to start all over. And he's like, "Well, what do you think I did?" Like that's what I did. I was a pack or truck loader, and then I was a driver for 20 years before I got that. After he retired, he was able to retire at 55. And people would go, "Oh, it must be nice.
That's awesome.
Must be nice to be retired, in your 50s." And he's like, "Do you know what I had to do in order to be able to do that?" Like, he didn't have big houses. He didn't have fancy cars. He would, let's see, in the time that I've been alive, my dad has had 4 vehicles. In the time I've been alive, I'm 40. He's had 4 vehicles in my lifetime. And I've ridden in all but one of them.
Wouldn't let you?
The current one.
He won't let you? No,
it's just usually he either comes to the shop or he comes over to my house when we hang out. We don't go on road trips. That was the thing growing up. I always looked forward to our fall trips to Kentucky, going to our family property and go squirrel hunting. And then in the summertime, going back down there with the boat that he had at the time and going fishing.
Yeah.
Like, that was things I looked forward to. It was kind of the same thing every year, but I looked forward to it because it was either just the two of us or with his brother, my uncle, or then when my sister got engaged and got married, then it was my brother-in-law. So that added some new spice to the trips.
Sure. Going back to the wouldn't it be nice thing. We have talked about that before. I was not surprised. Ray Cheshire, different strokes for different folks. Who's to say who's right and wrong? Some people may never be handed the opportunity to change and therefore live the same life forever. Some people may even decide to turn down those opportunities when they come along. Are they wrong? Nobody knows but them. It's a very open-minded comment from Ray Cheshire. I like that.
Well, I've kind of touched on that in the past, where when in the last 10 years since I got let go from LFD, I've had other opportunities to be back out on the road and work for different cigar companies. But when every time those opportunities came up, I was at a position where I was happy. It was a combination. I was happy where I was doing what I was doing, and the opportunity wasn't the right kind of opportunity.
Mm-hmm.
It wasn't something I was comfortable taking on. Like going back on the road and covering 8 states again. No, I didn't want to do that. But there were opportunities where, hey, maybe it was only 3 states. Cool. This could be something I would take. Oh, you're married? Yeah, I don't think this is going to work out. You know what? You're probably right. If you look at me being married as a downside to being a sales rep, yep, this isn't going to work out.
Not the culture you want.
Nope. Now, the person who ended up getting that job worked out great for them. They're still with that company, sort of. But, they're still there. It worked out well for them. So, I mean, yeah, who's to say? Sometimes
not every opportunity is the right opportunity.
Yeah. And it's great to be in a position to where you get to pick and choose what's the right opportunity for you, rather than, so here's one specifically. So back in 2013, I took that job with LFD. 2 months later, Tarano was looking for a sales rep. And at the time, Miguel, good buddy of mine, who was a groomsman to my wedding, he was the national sales manager for Tarano, and they were hiring. So they wanted to hire someone. Miguel told me later on that he didn't mention it to me because I just started with LFD 2 months ago.
Mm-hmm.
And the way I am as a person, I learned it from my father primarily. I didn't want to be that guy that gets his foot in the door with a company and then first opportunity to go someplace else bails.
Right.
Because then that's going to be your reputation in that industry, or it can be.
Or on a resume or whatever.
Yeah, on a resume.
Yeah,
you're going to seek the next opportunity. Well, then fast forward several months later, when LFD let me go, there were months there where I was like, I wish Miguel would have said something to me, so that way I could have taken that opportunity. And then what happened 8 months after I got let go from LFD? Tarano got sold and every sales rep was out of a job.
Mm-hmm.
So I would have been right back in the same boat. But by the time that happened with Tarano, I was already, I was working at Kroger and working at a cigar shop. So I had already gotten something and was, reestablishing myself.
Yeah.
All switching jobs would have done is delayed that by, 7-8 months.
Yeah. No, it's interesting how things work out that way. The, on this topic of, don't live the same year. And I don't know if Kristen's still listening, but the must be nice thing, or, like what you were saying about your dad, people looking at that, oh, you got 6 weeks vacation, whatever it is. It doesn't matter what it is. I mean, you put some work into it, right?
Mm-hmm.
No matter what it is, it must be nice to have 6 weeks vacation. Something as where you're working now, where I work in my job, it must be nice to be able to sit around and, smoke cigars all day, or, it must be nice to just be able to sample wines all day and stuff like that. It's still a job,
mm-hmm.
but
still have to deal with people.
Not only that, but what led you up to that, you had an opportunity that you did take advantage of. What got me into this was what I mentioned earlier, which was being let go after over a decade with no warning because they, for whatever their reasons were, they wanted to go a different direction in the company. You know, I know Kristen, you know, gets that sometimes too, where be like, oh, must be nice to be able to, you know, take the vacations. Must be nice to be able to like fly to see your parents, and must be nice to be able to do all that stuff. They don't see the hours and the things that she does and her career path that got her to that point.
And you and I have talked about some of that stuff, and yeah, I mean,
it's a lot. I mean, it's a lot of hard work. It's a lot of, you know, being good at what you do, dedicating yourself to that. And it's like a lot of the times the people that say, oh, must be nice, they're doing this. They're living the same year over and over again because they don't have a plan. They're just living in the moment. And that's why they can't do certain things. They don't like the job they're in, like I necessarily, after call it 8-9 years after that, like the last year and a half was like the worst at that last job. There were people being like, oh, it must be nice to, you know, be the GM of a, you know, a small, medium-sized company, and I had vacation time. I couldn't even take it.
Yeah.
I couldn't even fucking take it without getting a guilt trip. You know what I mean? Like, it was just one of those things where it was like my everyday life. It's like I had a lunch break, and it's like you have an hour lunch break. So I'd go out. I was, you know, I had 2 cells, so I was connected at all times. Even when I was not, I remember I was like in Cincinnati one time, and like trucks were calling me because they couldn't get a hold of anyone else. And I'm like, I don't even have, I'm not even at work. I've been, you know, like it's the week. Like I was not at work that day. I'm not even in the same city as you guys.
I'm an hour and a half away. What do you want me to do about it?
It's like, that was the, you know, well, it must be nice to be able to go do these things even back then or something like that. It's like, or take an hour lunch break where I would go to like the Tinder Box or local cigar shop, smoke a small cigar and come back and be like, oh, I didn't get to take a lunch break today. It's like, I don't know what to tell you. Like, figure it out so you can, you know what I mean? Like it's everything from the small things to the bigger things, you know, people, it's almost as if people that are living the same year over and over again, they look at it in envy that people are doing things that they want to do, but and it's not always there in their capacity to do certain things, right? Yeah, it must be nice to have like 18 cars in your garage and maybe a, you know, multimillionaire. Like most of those people, they sacrificed a lot to get there, and they followed a path, did certain things, took certain risks and gambles to get to that point, right? There's plenty of more people that did similar things that it didn't pan out, and they are not in those positions. You know what I mean? Yes, it is nice to have that, but I mean, a lot of times it does take taking that first step to do something different, to have that dream of that, not just say, oh, it must be nice to do that.
Well, and sometimes those people that are hyper successful and are hyper driven and they've done well, like they've either started businesses and sold them and start another and sell it, or, you know, they develop something and, you know, works out. Some of those higher performing people had to sacrifice relationships.
There's a lot of things. Their health, their relationships.
Health is another one possibly, but I've seen from a lot and what I've read and people I've listened to, like there's they give up a lot of relationships and time for themselves. And, you know, I remember hearing people talk where like, yeah, I started this business, and for the first 6 years, you know, I was the only person in my company. So I was working, you know, 6-7 days a week because it was all on me. If I didn't do my job, I didn't pay my mortgage, or I didn't put food on the table. Like it was all on me. And, you know, so why am I in the position now where, you know, I take it easy, you know, maybe I only work 3 days a week, 4 days a week, but it's because they put themselves in a position through sacrifice of the early years to where they have the ability to do that. They have people in place that can now do what they used to do. So that way, the one way that I heard it said years ago that I love is work. So it's something that I've said to people because it's kind of how I've done things over the last 10, 12 years. Work when I can now, so that way later in life I can work when I want to. And that's what I hope to be able to get to, is work when I want to, whether that's being retired and I don't, or, like my dad, like he retired and then he works 2 days a week, doing maintenance at a daycare that pays for his golf and his cigars. Everything else is taken care of because of the 30 plus years he busted his ass previously.
I think but again, I mean, not to focus on that, but again, that's why I think a lot of people out there in the community like the fact you took this vacation with Jess, because we've had that conversation before where it's like, yeah, what I was saying, work while you can, cool, or work until you're dead because you don't make it to retirement. So I still think you got to find that balance.
Yeah.
I'm not saying, take trips that you can't afford or buy things you can't afford or do all that stuff or take the time off or quit a job that you need a job but you don't have a plan. I mean, I think we all have to find that balance the best you can. Mental health is a big, almost like kind of a hot topic, buzzword. But I think there's something to it. You know what I mean? There's no point in being unhappy working while you can to someday, again, 10, 20, 30 years from now, then you make it there. You know what I mean? Like, to get to your dad's age, you're 20 plus years from now. So, okay, 20 years, you're going to work while you can. I mean, yeah, work while you can. I mean, while you're healthy and younger, but you got to find that time to, I think not just you, but we all have to find that time or find those things that you enjoy so that you can not just get in that rut, not just do the same. Like, yep, 2025 is going to be the same as 2024. 2026 is going to be the same. 2027 is going to be the same. But 2039, that's when I'm going to get it. Like what you were saying earlier, like when you work backwards from that, you know what I mean? It's like 2039 is going to be my year. Tell you what, it's going to be awesome. Be able to just work a couple days a week or maybe not at all. Man, it's going to be great. It's like, cool. Good luck getting there.
Yeah. What are you going to do from now to then?
Yeah.
Like,
geez.
but no, and and you kind of touched on too, like when people sit there and go, the whole must be nice, take a, this really nice trip to a resort. It's like, yeah, but do you understand the bullshit I deal with on a day-to-day basis? Like, I kind of need that in order. I need that trip. I posted it a couple weeks ago on Steak and Wine Sunday. That was the question: what charges you and what drains you?
Mm-hmm.
Like sometimes those, the day-to-day grind of work and dealing with people and corporate and all that shit, sometimes that can be the drain on you. And then that vacation that you plan, that's what charges you.
Yeah.
And that gets you to the next one. Or it re-energizes you to be able to go back to work with a different mindset.
Sure.
So that way it's like, okay, like I'm doing this, things aren't going great, but this is what I'm working for. This is what I'm working towards. And again, kind of like with Austin, it's not the 2039, 15 years down the road. It's what
2039 is only 15 years down the road. Jesus. Thanks for putting that in perspective.
Well,
that's like 40 years from now, isn't it?
Well, you ever see the ones where it's like, 2050 is closer to today than and it's one of those, it's like, God, or if they made a song about now, like I forget what song it was, but they were the title was basically a year, and they're like, well, if they made that song now, you'd be talking about this year, and you're like, holy shit, am I really that old?
Yeah. I mean, that ties in completely. I remember, growing up, it's like, what do they say? Like, I'm not going to try to do the math right now, but so it's like 1990,
34 years ago. So that would be
1956,
58
from 1990.
Well, 1990 was 34. So add 34 to
that.
this, it'd be 58. You said 56.
I was going backwards. I'm sorry. It would be 1958 or 1956.
Oh, going the other way. Okay.
That's where it's like in 1990. That's the difference. Looking back at 1990, where I'm at, and I know everyone's different ages out there, but I'm like, oh, I was 10 years old, like that. But it still doesn't seem that long ago. The 90s and all stuff. Like And that was the late 50s and 60s. And like growing up, I'm like, that's forever ago. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
That's where
When
we're
people
at.
sit there and go 20 years ago, oh, you mean the 90s? No, I mean the 2000s. You're like,
Mhm.
oh, fuck.
Yeah, exactly. And that's where you get into that, that's the perspective that you need for don't live the same year for 75 years and call it a life. Life has a way of, I think, taking care of itself in that respect, that you can try to do that, but all the things we're talking about, I think, will be looking back, it'll be reflecting that it's not the same. So whether you try it or not, going back, I think it was Lou, then looking back at the new experiences, it's appreciating the new experiences. It's the fact that you don't want to just let life take its course. You want to, like we always talk about, we want to like work on yourself. You want to like be able to make the most of the experiences you have. And I can appreciate what you said, that you're going to work when you can, so that when you don't have to, you'll be able to enjoy life. But you can't wait to enjoy life. You got to.
No, I'm not saying wait till you.
I know you're
wait to
not,
enjoy
but I mean
life,
the way.
but yeah, okay.
I know what you're saying. I'm taking that literally, and it's like I'm going to work while I can, so that when I don't, like when I'm older, I don't have to work.
But when I say that, let me also add, like, I'm not working just to work. I'm not working aimlessly. I'm working with a purpose. Like, there are things that we are working towards.
It's good.
And, if I put in more effort while I can, we can accomplish that goal sooner.
Absolutely. It's like saving and doing that stuff financially. Yeah, absolutely. I agree. I will say this, and I don't know how much we want to go round and round about this, but my life is a prime example. I know some of the, like Ray, I know his story a little bit. Jonathan, I've talked to him about it. Charlie, I don't know as much. I'm trying to see. Tim, I don't know. I mean, we had you on the podcast, but I mean, it's plans will change, and the plans you made before may or may not pan out. And I think that what I've learned so far in the career thing, I'm making the most of the career I have right now. And I'm trying to stay creative. I'm trying to stay hungry. Also knowing that where I work and doing what I'm doing, that's what really spawned the podcast where it's at now. It spawned the community page. It spawned the Smoking 10 event, for those that know what that is, where it's at now, working for my boss, Brian, who owns the shop. There's not a whole lot of advancement in a small business like that. So it's not one of those things, where it's like, I remember when I first started there, coming from my experience and the people that knew what I was doing before, they were like, okay, so when you guys open a second shop, what are you guys doing? All that stuff. And it's like, it wasn't really part of that plan, but there's got to be some, if you want to stick with something, whether it be a job, whether it be a relationship, that's where I go back to the creativity and the hunger to keep it exciting, not only for the other party, your employer or your partner, it's for yourself also. And so that's what I've learned, though, going into this and this year, with now being engaged to Kristen, still working at the Tinder Box. When I say still working at the Tinder Box, that's not a negative to me. Being engaged to Kristen, it's not like, oh, this is a chance to start over. This is a chance to continue to grow as an individual. And I am happy I have a partner that wants to do things in life with me. It's one of the reasons that we are going down the path we are with being engaged and being married, is because I say it's easy, but it's just, it feels so right being in these situations. It's not necessarily going to be a rut, because it's funny. I don't know. What are you laughing at? Oh. But you get those comments. I didn't know what to expect with this coming back into the shop, even, or to the people out there. There's going to be a lot of jokes. They're like, oh, don't do it. Don't get married. Like, why would you ruin it? There were like 2 jokes, quickly followed by congratulations. And it's really nice to have that kind of support, because you look at those things and, I ran into someone. He came in the shop, hadn't seen him. He moved away. Yesterday, he was in the shop, passing through town. He stopped in, and he was, hey man, congratulations. I saw on Facebook, we follow each other on Facebook and all that stuff, and congratulations. I was like, yeah, man, I haven't seen you in a long time. Great to see you, all this stuff. And he's like, last time I saw you was like 3-4 years ago. I think it was 3.5 years ago. He's like, I don't want to really bring it up, but he's like, you were in a tougher spot, you know. He's like, man, it's just so great to, I've been following you, and you know, obviously he's a support of the Tinder Box customer and a friend, also from the Chicago area, and he was like, you're the same person, but when I left town, you were going through some shit, and it's really cool to see that. And it's funny because like life doesn't, like the plans that you have don't always pan out, but sometimes, like you were saying about your job, even with LFD, it's like if you would have taken that path, it would have just followed the actual like greater path, even if you did make decisions that you thought you were for the best. You know what I mean? Like if you had taken that job and all of a sudden it would have blown up in your face no matter what. I'm not going to get into, oh, the universe has bigger plans and all that stuff, but I will say that if you keep working on yourself and you keep, like, if the plans that you had don't pan out, now all of a sudden you have to make new plans. You have to figure out what you can do to continue to enjoy life and not just live the same year after year. If you're in a good spot, don't do it. If you're in a bad spot, don't do that either.
I like what Jonathan Herring said right there. Nothing better than seeing your friends thrive and be happy.
Absolutely.
That's huge. And unfortunately, there are people out there that when they see others, like if they're not in a good spot and they see other people being successful or being in happy relationships, like they're not envious, they're spiteful.
Yeah, must be nice.
Because they're like, oh man, that person, that person's doing what they like. That person's happy. Yeah, makes me sick. It's like there are people out there like that, unfortunately, and I think it's one of those things where if you have those kind of people in your life, you do one of two things: you either be an example for them, or you cut them loose.
Sure.
And I'll give myself the opportunity to do the former, and be an example for that person. But if that person wants to just be Eeyore, despite opportunities that are out there for them, I'm not going to help them. If you're not going to help yourself, I'm not going to help you. But if you're going to continue to wallow in your own misery, when shit happens to you, I'm not going to feel sorry for you.
No,
I may feel bad, like you don't want
like any ill will.
No,
yeah.
No, I'm not wishing something bad would happen, but I've had people in my life where, like they've done bad things or they continue to make poor choices, and then something bad happens. I'm like, I'm sorry that's happening to you. Unfortunately, it's a product of your choices, so I don't feel sorry. Feel bad that you have to go through that because you're a friend, you're someone I care about, and I don't want you to go through that. But at the same time, like, you did this, you have to live with that. And if you want to make a better change, like, great, I'll help you if I can, one way or the other. But if you're not going to help yourself, don't ask others to help you for you.
Yeah, and get out of your own way, right? Fucking stop. Put a little bit of that energy of the spite, of the Eeyore, like you said. Put a little bit of that energy and twist it to something positive.
Yeah, it's actually bettering your situation.
Yeah, spend 5 minutes of the 60 you just did about complaining towards, be like, what could I do differently?
Yeah,
to make it a little bit better for me.
And it's amazing how quickly that 5 minutes can multiply.
Jesus. Isn't that for sure? It's draining, not only on that person, but it's draining on the people around you. And Jonathan says what you had just talked about. The opposite side is nothing better than seeing your friends and family or whatever, but thrive and be happy.
That was my lead.
I know, and that's the opposite side of it, is that it really is inspiring. If you if you do have that mindset, you should have the opposite of the like you said. It's like, it's awesome, man.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Congratulations for you. Like, okay, cool. here, I got a friend. They're doing successful in their career or they're successful in their relationship. Awesome. I wish I had that.
Surround yourself.
Don't end it there.
Surround yourself by those people, by the way.
Yes. But if you're always going to be the negative Nelly, don't be surprised when those people cut you off.
Yeah, sure.
Because sometimes they're just going to get tired of it. If you're always the one bringing down the room, you're going to find yourself in a different room.
Empty room. Most likely. Most likely. Let's kind of wrap it up here, I think, unless there's some good comments coming through, but I think we've kind of exhausted a lot of this here. So closing remarks. Again, this is based on don't live the same year for 75 years and call it a life. So Nate, go ahead.
So like I said earlier, when
put you on the spot there.
Well, I knew you would.
Fair.
No, like I said earlier, when I saw that post from Austin, given our history on the podcast and the things that we've talked about, that whole hand in the face metaphor and stuff, it also made me think, like I said, like there's nothing wrong with living and working towards the future, but you can't work so much to the future that you forget to live now. You have
absolutely
to, you have to, you have to do something, like the Thanksgiving post. Like, what do you want to be thankful for? It's like, what do you want to be happy for next year? Like, what are some of the things you want to do just within the next year to maybe get you towards that long-term goal? And that's one of the things they say about when you're setting goals. They need to be something that's achievable, and there needs to be a time frame to it. You can't just set a goal and then expect to hit that goal willy-nilly, just whenever.
Yeah.
Like if you set an actual time to that goal, and that time also has to be reasonable, like it makes it a lot easier to figure out what needs to be done to get to that point. If you take a big goal and you break it down into little steps, those individual steps seem much more accomplishable than the overall goal. To where once you start accomplishing some of the smaller things, now that end goal is more in your face and seems more achievable, seems more right there.
Yeah.
And it can sometimes give you an extra energy to want to get it done even sooner. But you can't sit there and you can't necessarily accomplish that if all you're sitting there going, well, here's what I want to be in 2040. That's a horrible idea, because most of the time, if people set goals that are that far out, they don't accomplish them because they're just like, well, you know what? I got 16 years. And then a few years go by. Well, I got 11 years.
Yeah.
I got 5 years. Holy shit. That's next year. It's like when you known there's been a school project or an essay. It's like, hey, you've got a month to write this essay.
Oh, I'm big on, you're speaking to me.
So like,
I'm big. Yeah. Procrastination was almost an art form for me when I was younger, especially. And it's carried over, unfortunately.
Well, and what's funny is one of the things that made me really think about that was in my college years when I was in a class, wasn't a professor I really admired at all. But like the way they started the semester, and it was a history class. But the way they started the semester was you had to write a 1-page paper on some sort of current event. And then 2 weeks later, you had to write a 2 to 3 page paper. And then you had to write
same kind of where the
same topic.
Events. Okay.
And then you had to write a 5-page paper. And then your final for the semester was you had to write a 10 to 14 page paper.
Oh, I fucking hated that.
Well, I'd already written a 1-page, like basically condensed a bunch of stuff down to 1 page. Then I expanded on it, and then I expanded on it again. So by the time it came, and there was more than just the 3 or 4 papers.
Sure.
But by the time it came down to the end paper, I had already done most of the groundwork. I'd already laid a foundation for the paper. So it's okay. Now I can go into more detail and work on things more specific to accomplish that overall goal. So, here's a history teacher, and I'm writing a paper on genetic engineering. And I spent the first 4 pages of the paper going over just basic genetics, just basic DNA and everything. I was able to stretch that paper out. So then it's like, okay, I spent 4 pages on the basics. Now I only have to write a 6-page paper on where do we go from here.
Okay.
And so by breaking it down and expanding on some of the smaller things, it made if the professor had just come up and go, hey, next month you have to submit to me a 12-page paper on whatever topic you choose. How do I?
You're overwhelmed.
You feel overwhelmed.
Yeah,
but when you sit there and you're like, okay, do a 1-page, do a 3-page.
You have the building blocks and
exactly.
Yeah, you work backwards.
So that's the way you kind of have to look at it is if you want to achieve a goal in the future, what do you do to take care of that in 2024?
Yeah.
And then what do you want to do to take care of that? Or what do you need to do to take care of that in 2025?
Mm-hmm.
You're breaking it down, and those should be both career, relationship, whatever it is. Like, have goals for each one of those aspects.
I like that.
Because then it makes each one of those things more accomplishable. And who knows, you might actually achieve that goal sooner than what you expected.
Yeah. That was really well said. Good metaphor, for sure. Oh.
Explosions.
Look, this whole topic of, don't live the same year for 75 years and call it a life. Man, you got to work real hard to do that. You really do. I mean, that's got to be super intentional to just almost.
It's what they call sweat equity.
Sort of. But again, that goes back to, maybe someday you'll be able to use that equity. Hard work is one thing in a relationship and career, whatever it might be. I truly think that what I've said already is that, I'm a prime example, to me at least, is that where I thought I would be when I graduated high school, college, when I was going to be 40, it was completely different of where I'm at now.
Mm-hmm.
Like, that was not, like, I didn't plan to get married and divorced, work a job that I didn't even know that I wanted to do, in a sense, the career, and get those different promotions throughout it for 10 years. I didn't plan on getting fired. I didn't plan on, being after my marriage in an on and off relationship. I didn't plan on necessarily being in the cigar industry for 10 plus years. I didn't plan on starting a podcast. I didn't plan on all this stuff. It was constantly, as I've gotten older, I have gotten better at more evolving with the plans and now creating new plans. Same thing with what we were talking about. And I appreciate all the congratulations. I didn't plan on meeting my partner. I didn't plan on meeting Kristen. I didn't plan on that. It was not reinventing myself, but it was purely wanting to make sure that I was starting with a good base and then branching off of that and building off of that to a point that I was ready to do new things in my same job. I was ready to meet Kristen. I was ready to do this, and it's constantly trying to evolve. We've talked about doing, like, even this show, it's like doing it every week for 6+ years. It's like, do we continue doing it every week? Do we break it up? And, seeing more people even after like the week off, it's nice to see that. So every once in a while, maybe we do take a week off. It's like, because sometimes we keep pushing and pushing and just doing the same thing over and over again. And it's like, it's tough to continue at that pace. Sometimes in a relationship, you need a little bit, not of a break from that person, but you need to get out of the house. You need to go out. You need to do something. Like, hey, let's go do something different tonight. It's you find yourself in either a good or bad situation. But again, the plans I had 20 some years ago are certainly not where my life is now. But that's okay, because I love the life I have right now.
Well, and how many people out there are honestly, if they're 40 or over, how many of those people are actually doing what they thought they would be doing at the age of 20?
very few. And some of the people that do that, they're happy in certain arenas. And then there's the other aspect of it is that there are the people that are just working, purely working while they can work, so that when they can get to that point where they can enjoy life,
life's gone.
That's tough. That's tough.
Well, it's like the running quote unquote joke. It's not really a joke, but you spend 40, 50 years of your life, just enjoy the last 10.
If that,
if you're lucky.
And Jonathan, I know you
what's the
threw this up there, but we were having a conversation, so it's just not my closing remarks. But I had a nice conversation with my mom tonight about, you were talking about wedding plans and stuff like that. And one of the things that we're talking about doing is destination wedding. And it was really refreshing. My mom just last weekend, actually, she turned 77 and she's retired. And she made the comment, because I was like, would you actually be, because she said, yeah, she'd like to do it, but like, would you actually be, interested in doing, like, going to a destination wedding? I know, like, the beach is not really your thing at 77. And she laughed and she's like, no, it's been a long time since I've been down to, like, the beach atmosphere down there, because they used to, when my dad and her were younger, they would do that. They took their vacation, down in the nicer areas down there, vacation areas. And she's like, I've gotten to the point where it's like, I want to enjoy life, like, I don't want to just, she was basically saying, I don't want to just, the way I took it, I don't want to just, like, go through the next several years of my life, whether it be, she's 77, so 5 years to 15 years, whatever, you know what I mean? Like, I don't want to just go day to day and not do anything. She still gets out, she still gets together with her girlfriends, she still does all this stuff. She's like, yeah, I'd be happy to do that. She's shopping for a new car. She's doing these things, not like spending money frivolously, but she's like, I want to continue to enjoy my life.
Mm-hmm.
And also she's like, yeah, I wouldn't mind. She's like, I haven't been on a plane out of the country in years, but yeah, I'd do that. I loved hearing that, because it gets to that with that whole thing where, even if you do get to that retirement age, even if you do get to your goal, do you know how to enjoy life? Because if you've been doing the same shit for 30 some years, and now you're like, oh, now I don't have to work. Now I have retirement. Now I got money, that it's like in an account that's accruing interest, and I'm living off of a fixed income, if you will, or whatever. Do you even know how to enjoy life? Because you haven't been for 30, 40 years. Now you got to learn it at 60, 70 years old.
And that's
cool.
That's another one of those catchphrases where, what's the number one killer of old people? Retirement. Because
Absolutely.
they've spent so many decades of their life having a purpose, and then they retire and they're like, oh, what do I have? I spent so much of me was caught up in working. I don't have that anymore.
Right.
What do I do? They don't know how to enjoy that.
Right. So that's, I think, part of the whole process is to find the balance we were talking about. So you can have that goal of getting to a certain age or a certain goal that you had, like you were talking about, work backwards, but you can't have that goal be death, because you don't know when that's coming. So then it's about, like, all right, do I enjoy what I have? How do I do it responsibly? And how do I grow? And like I said, I know myself, I'm a prime example of 43 years old. When I was younger, this isn't where I thought I'd be, but I had that conversation with Nate and some other people, 3 years ago. It's different 3 years later.
Mm-hmm.
And it took a lot of work, and took a lot of, like, that focus on how to balance all that stuff. And good place now. And 3 years from now, I truly hope and I believe that it'll be even better. So sometimes you have those restarts and all that stuff, but when you have the opportunities, whether it be a new job, new relationship, or just like when you get knocked down, and I think it is something that we really do have to continue to. I'm not going to let this year define me for the rest of my life. And I'm also not going to, like, let this year be the same thing over and over again, so that sometime in the future, things will be good. I can do what I want to do. You got to start now.
Yeah.
So, guys, cheers. Happy Whiskey Wednesday. We appreciate everyone tuning in. Jonathan, I hope you enjoyed your drinks. Congratulations on your new home. And thank you, everyone out there. Once again, thanks for the good wishes and all the nice words you guys said about Kristen and my engagement. So cheers, guys.